Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on March the 13th, 2018. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, dropping the charges,
Caffeine Rage.
On today's show, we will of course be discussing the games that we've played this week. Trump meets with the ESA and the ESRB at a roundtable. Artifact, Valve is making games again. Fortnite is coming to mobile and will support crossplay with PC and consoles. We'll have our weekly community corner with a question this week and our Steam weekly discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Well, I've recovered from the concussion after reading the news.
Yeah.
And you've come back from the salt mine. That was
beyond salt. That was
taking
salt a stick of dynamite and chucking it in the salt mine instead of using my usual pickaxe and hand drill.
Yeah, I think I didn't have as big a response because I was really expecting that. And I guess we should say the House Intelligence Committee, found no collusion. So, and Jared went off when I linked that to him.
Yeah, so last night we went to some of our friends' house to have game night. We try and have game night every 2 or 3 weeks with them. So I was completely oblivious. I'd had a good time playing Dead of Winter for like 3.5 hours.
That's a really good board game. Even though I think we had a couple of people in the group that was a little tired of zombies, and last time we played, I kind of threw the game for everyone when I realized I was in an unwinnable situation because I was the betrayer.
Yeah.
Which is, perfectly logical for the betrayer. It's like, I'll screw you all over.
Yeah. No, we had never played it with our friends before, so we taught them how to play, and we had a blast. It's fun on tabletop, but it's just because there's so many pieces, it's kind of fiddly on tabletop, so it's a much better game to play in person. And yeah, we had a blast.
I imagine if someone had VR and was able to handle it really well, it's probably very quick to set up on tabletop.
Yeah. But we were having a grand old time, and then we got home, and I sat down at my computer, and I saw the news, and I blew a gasket. I'm honestly not very proud of what I did last night, but I'm leaving it because, sticking with your choices and all of
damn.
that. Yeah,
I was expecting a result when I just saw you just go silent. I thought, oh, he's on Twitter. Go over to your recent tweets. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, the news was not unexpected, but it was like one of those things. It just broke something in my brain. If you're interested, people, I'm leaving it. So you can go look at my Twitter account at JMA4707. Ding. And you can see the tirade I went off on. And then I went to bed. Actually, no, I went and I watched Judge Dredd. Or no, not Judge Dredd, the new Judge Dredd movie, which is just called Dredd.
Which turns out it's going to be a documentary.
It might be.
Do you think the future we're going to end up with a mixture of Judge Dredd, Dredd, and Idiocracy?
Maybe. I hope I'm killed in the apocalypse, though, if that happens.
To be honest, most people die in the apocalypse anyway. Everybody's preparing for the all-out war, but what's the odds of them actually surviving?
I'm gonna go stand in the path of the nuclear bombs or the nuclear missiles and just wait for my demise. Although where I live, I guess Oak Ridge would have the potential to be a target.
I think
otherwise there's nothing near me that justifies a target. So
I think I'm on the 300 or 200 list. But hey, maybe we'll get some neat mutant powers, or just turn into ghouls.
I would be okay with being a ghoul, I think.
Which,
Death
speaking of that, video games?
Yeah, that's a good video game segue since, ghouls are in that there Fallout game.
Yeah, which
although now I was playing Fallout.
Well, not anymore, but we'll come back around to Fallout in a little bit.
Did we put that on the news topic?
No, that's in the ESA thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, I've only played 2 games this week, and I don't think I could get any further between my 2 games if I tried. Both on quality, genre, and me wanting to go back and play them some more. So let's start off with the Sunday Sampler. Sega Kagura Peach Beach Splash. Oh boy. A little bit behind the scenes for the Sunday Sampler for me. Whenever I doing my final thoughts before doing my recording, I open up OpenOffice and I make bullet points. And then I handwrite them onto paper because I'm old and I don't have a tablet nearby to be able to just reference while I'm chattering away during a video, and usually somewhat inarticulately. Usually it's about a page of bullet points. For this game, I had 3. And let's start off with the DLC for this fucking thing, because that's where I started in my video. $300 fucking of DLC. And the fun part is not all of it is cosmetic. Some of this is power, because this game, it saw what Battlefront 2 did. It was like, hold my sake.
Could because Japanese, huh? I see what you did there.
This has the potential for being the most imbalanced fucking game I've seen in quite a while, because, well, you mentioned it when we found this on the Discovery queue. I knew about it before that, but I didn't really pay attention to the card system. The card system is, well, one of the really about 2 or 3 things that really breaks this game for me. As you play, you get Zenny, which is the in-game currency, to go to the in-game shop and buy card packs, as well as cosmetics for your girls and that sort of thing. This is a titillation third-person shooter, for lack of a better term. And the cards are your power-ups, but they also, as you get duplicates, they allow you to level up your skills. And the fun part is, different rarities of cards have massive differences in power. A 4-star barrier card that I got on the video was, if memory serves, like 5 times stronger than just the rare or standard card that I had also in my collection. And you could stack them. The game works as essentially a CCG third-person shooter with tits. And the power-up system is essentially just a miniature deck of about 10 cards. And you could stack the same type of card over and over again. Not the same exact card, but each effect has at least one of every rarity. So if you just keep stacking the individual cards of that type, for example, Barrier, which is probably the most egregious example, at least in the limited time that I played, you could constantly be putting a barrier on yourself and making yourself in-fucking-vincible. And this has multiplayer, by the way. Can you imagine how much fun this is?
About this much. I'm doing a visual gag on an audio-only show.
Yeah, but it about works. And as you get duplicates of cards, you can turn those into levels for the cards, which also, and here's the fun part, even if you're not doing the barrier thing and just doing a pretty standard deck, you can level up your girl, which gives you more and more health. The girl I decided to just start leveling up, she had over twice as much health as the level 1s after hardly any time playing. So you could see where this could be a little bit of a balance issue. This is worse than what Battlefront 2 ever was. Only difference was that Battlefront 2, it was paid in. But then again, in the DLC, there are a couple of the DLCs which also are fucking expensive for what they are. There are card packs. Direct power. Yeah. Oh. So, let's talk about the gameplay, because we haven't even touched on that. First of all, the controls. The controls were fucking abysmal. In order to play this with mouse and keyboard without rebonding the entire fucking thing, which thankfully you can, because they at least did that, you need 3 hands, because it's WSAD for movement, mouse for aiming, obviously, which the mouse aiming is sluggish as hell, even with the sensitivity of the camera turned up, and the DPI on my mouse turned up, it was still sluggish. That should be saying something. The power-ups, by default, on all 3 of the profiles, were on arrow keys. How the hell are you supposed to hit that?
And a third hand, obviously.
Maybe it's the mutants that were playing the Nintendo 64. But in the original launch, before they patched it for the default control schemes to make a little bit more sense, jump was on A. They eventually, when they patched it to try to fix some of the crashing issues, which we'll get to crashing and just FPS issues in a little bit, it was just fucking believable. If it's not the worst default controls I've ever seen, it's definitely up there. And then we get to the actual gameplay. Well, this is a more movement-based game with a jetpack and a jet dash, but they all use the same ammo as your gun. So as you're moving around, you're depleting the ammo from your gun. Am I the only one that sees this as a problem? So you jet forward, then you have to stop and reload, and when you reload, you duck down and pump your gun. So you just negated all your movement. And no matter what gun you use, it has this long reload cycle that it slowly builds up until it finally is loading fairly quickly, but only the weapons that have just massive ammo pools, like the Gatling gun, really get to that point. It's just, it feels like they penalize you for actually using your movement. Granted, you don't really need to if you're playing single player, because I think the best thing I could say about the AI is it functions. Kinda.
Okay.
The AI, I played for about 7 hours, 6 or 7 hours, which some of it was trying to resolve a crashing issue, which was in the base game. And some of the menus, the FPS is just dog shit, no matter what you do or what settings you have on, which there's limited graphic settings to begin with. I saw the AI running in circles. The single player is pretty much just the 2 teams throwing themselves at one another with no semblance of strategy whatsoever. The AI rarely makes use of the jetpack, and that's only when they're jumping from preset platforms to one another. I never saw the AI use the jet dash, which makes me think that the jet dash is just there for, having something dangling off the girl's ass.
Oh yeah.
And the AI never tried to revive. If the game does an interesting thing with its health system, where there's essentially a 2-part health system. Once you drop to 50% health, you essentially hit a break where you get stunned for a moment, get knocked back, and get a temporary shield put on you. And then when you drop to 0, that's you're dead, and then you respawn, unless you're in one of the single-player missions during the story, which then you just lose a life. The AI never tried to revive anyone that was downed. Ever. Yeah. Oh. Can you tell I didn't like this game?
Sounds that way.
Let's see.
Am I deterred from wanting this game? No. No, I'm not.
Well, you just want tits. But honestly, there's better animated booby games out there, because this game is heavily censored. Granted, there are mods to fix that, but content-wise, the there's the Victory Road, or V Road. See? V.
Yeah.
Where it's 4 tournaments with 5 tiers each. Just, pretty much just straight up death match.
Okay.
One team against another. And the story is that it's an ancient shinobi tradition of water gun battles because Japan.
Right.
Like you do. And the 4 shinobi schools in this world are fighting one another. And they're streaming it live on YouTube. Or sorry, YouTube, but it looks like YouTube with tits in the background. So, ninjas definitely want to be parading around in bikinis on the internet. But during the Victory Road, it's the 2 teams, the 2 full teams from each of the schools fighting in essentially a tournament against one another. And you have to beat all 5 of the all 5 tiers of the tournament of that particular set of the Victory Road to progress. If you lose any one of them, which it feels damn arbitrary because of how the AI just throws themselves at one another, you get sent back to the start. If you quit during any of those, you get sent back to the start. So it's frustrating because there was a couple times that my team was just running around in circles, literally. So it was be against the entire enemy team, which I could fight off some of them, but 5 on like 2 or 3. And it doesn't do a respawn wave like most shooters do. It's just as soon as the respawn timer's up, you're back in. So, if you get a bad setup, you'll just have your team slowly trickling in the entire time, which is also frustrating, as well as just the numerous cards that have either stuns or knockdowns, and the knockdowns and the melee attacks are very long animations and very slow to get out of, which just leaves you as a sitting duck. Thankfully, the AI is too fucking brain dead to make use of it, but multiplayer, I'm sure, you get knocked down, you're dead. Oh. Still haven't deterred you because anime boobies, right?
Right. So I'm dropping a link into chat for you to go look at a game. And this is what I think of whenever you're talking about this game, except the game that I just gave you a link to, Rumble Roses Double X, was actually a good wrestling game. Because what I thought when I saw this, Senran Kagura, Peach Beach Splash, was kind of what I thought about Rumble Roses, which is, I would pull this out from my college dorm, and everyone would be like, hey, boobies, let's play the booby game. And we'd all laugh for 10 minutes, and then everyone would get quiet, because it was like it was actually a good game. And so we'd forget about the boobies, and we'd actually just be playing a decent wrestling game.
No,
and that's kind of like what I
there's so many things in it that
to
just it kind of takes me out of it. It does a single gun and melee weapon that's pulled out of hammer space,
right?
And that's it for guns. Oh, and also the guns are leveled up, and as they level, they get extremely powerful. So it'll be more down to who spent the most time or who got a bit lucky, because let's see what else. Something else I didn't mention about the controls, which, okay. The game shows gamepad controls. No matter what. If you're playing with mouse and keyboard, you'll have no fucking idea what some of the controls are. Particularly if you want to go through the menus. In some places, to go back, you right-click. In others, you have to hit Shift. In others, you have to hit Tab. Good luck trying to remember which is which. It never tells you mouse and keyboard controls. Ever. And for some of the more titillating areas of the game, you're just going to sit there hitting a key and see if it does something. Hit a key, see if it does something. The game may as well not be in fucking English.
Okay.
I mean, I was not expecting this to be, well, I guess the proper term would be like Overwatch, something really polished, but this game is dog shit.
Right. So it's not a good game. It's just look at the girls in bikinis.
It's not a good game because of balance issues. It's not a good game because of crashing issues. I couldn't even get multiplayer to connect. And even if I could, there's a lot of people on the discussion forums talking about how some of the DLC is just causing people to crash out if they don't own it. And because there's $300 of DLC, it's, good luck figuring out which one is which. The controls are a bit floaty. There's, you would expect the game to have, for, if you pardon the wordplay, a bit of fluidity to it with the jetpack and the jet dash, but you can't use one immediately after the other. So you can't jetpack up and then jet dash to try to get some mobility. It's one or the other, and there's a long delay in between the two, to the point where I'm not sure if I ever was able to jet dash in the air. It may be a limitation of the game itself, but it's one of those things that they should work together, because they're two completely different parts of the equipment on the girl. It's just, okay. In order to even hit anything, because of how sluggish the camera was, I had to actually turn on the aim assist in the game. And the aim assist is so strong that it was pointing the general direction, and I was hitting things. Yep.
I fought in your general direction.
And I could only imagine how frustrating that would be online, because that's a built-in feature. Even ignoring the online component and focusing on single player, it's lacking because there's no arcade mode. There's no, just pick two teams and throw them together, or pick a custom team and throw them together. It's the Victory Road, which is a set series of tiered tournaments. There's the story mode, which each of the 4 schools have has 10 missions with some visual novel-esque story bits in between. And most of those missions are extremely short, and they're all essentially horde mode, where you're going through the multiplayer maps, but the multiplayer maps are just filled with random goons, essentially, that you're fighting. Occasionally you'll have a fight with another team, but that's a rarity. And then there's the Paradise episodes, which is short stories for smaller groups than the full school teams. But those are 5 missions each. And the one I did, I could have gotten unlucky on it, on my length, but one mission was a minute. All 4 of the others were 30 seconds each. It took me longer to load and go through the story bits, which the story bits weren't even visual novels. They were basically just text windows, than to actually play the missions.
Alrighty.
So if you want a completely unbalanced piece of shit with tits, I hardly recommend Peach Beach Splash. But if you want to play something actually competent, or, have better titillation in another game, because this is centered out the wazoo. Matter of fact, you can't even see the wazoo because of light beams.
That's just how I like my wazoo. Covered in light beams.
I was just checking out something else. So I think final thoughts are, no sir, I don't like it.
Well, that makes me very, very, very sad.
Yet somehow strangely aroused.
Yeah, I'll still buy it. It'll roll around on sale for like $5 at some point.
Still too much.
And then I'll buy it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes to see if there's anything I missed. But I wouldn't even say it's $5 worth of fun, because you're going to spend at least 15 or 20 minutes rebinding everything. And then you have to go through the tutorials, and the tutorials have all the gamepad controls. So you're having to figure out, okay, what did I rebind this to? So shall we move on to something actually fun?
Sure. You can move on as you wish.
So on the complete other end of the spectrum, I played a few hours of Hearts of Iron 4. This was a Christmas gift from Cube, and I finally got around to playing it because we had several big projects in between then and now, so I hadn't really been able to sit down and put the time into it. And also, this is a Paradox game, which requires a few hours of tutorials. And I will say that I don't have a full grasp on this yet. I mean, obviously, it's a Paradox game. But I've enjoyed my time with it so far. I played South Africa, which is one of the minor powers, just to try to get a feel really on the economy side of things, because this is really a game of two halves, trying to manage your country and trying to manage your war effort. And I'll have to say that I probably had the most peaceful run up until when World War II happened in this game's history, because Cube couldn't believe just how peaceful things were. There was no conflict in or in Africa at all for South Africa to try to help out with. The Spanish Civil War was just rolled over, and now I'm blanking on the sides of the Spanish Civil War, which is terrible of me. The rebels just rolled over the Spaniards and reformed the country in practically no time. So, yeah, I kind of had a bad time to learn the war side of things, but I spent quite a time learning the diplomatic side and learning how to control my country. I will say that it is a very deep game, but there's also, at least on a minor power in the early scenario, because you have two scenarios, 1936 and 1939. Playing on the early scenario in those first 3 years, if you have a peaceful time, like I did, it is a little bit of, I would almost call a podcast game, where you're just sitting there and, clicking things and, watching things happen. Oh, look, Spain's burning. Let's go watch that for a bit. But it may have just been bad luck on my part, because Britain didn't call me into anything. Because, South Africa was a colony of Great Britain at the time. So I was just kind of sitting on the sidelines watching things go, which isn't bad, but it doesn't make for compelling gameplay. And then World War II started. Let's see, Hitler decided that, Poland looks like a lot of fun. Let's take that. Which I think is a national pastime in Poland, getting invaded. Because isn't their history just full of invasions?
I believe so.
Then Hungary joined in, and they wiped out Poland in practically no time. Then things got interesting. The Kingdom of Romania had a military coup and decided to attack Hungary, while Germany focused on trying to get Switzerland. And just they rolled over Switzerland, but it was it took some time. But while they were tied up, Hungary was losing territory to Romania. But yeah, it's one of those games that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of knobs and dials to work with, and probably because I had such a peaceful start, I was so far behind and didn't really understand the military aspect of things that I'm really out of my depth still. But I think it's going to be something I'm going to be playing on and off for quite a while.
Yeah, it doesn't... Sometimes I'm in the mood for a game like that. I've never played Hearts of Iron, but I have played games like that in the past. Like, most notably on PC, the older Axis and Allies release.
Yeah, well, I had Hearts of Iron 3 from somewhere, but Cube sent me 4 with a good chunk of the DLC from the package that he sent me, which thank you very much for that. Sorry it took me so long to get around to it, but there was some major projects in between the two times. I mean, we had episode 100 to do. We had a couple major game clubs that required a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I was sick for a good chunk of February.
Yeah. Speaking of game club, I think I'm pretty much like I think I could do game club this week.
Outside of story,
it's
right?
not time. Huh?
Outside of story, of course, right?
Yeah, outside of the story bits, I think I'm already know how I feel about the game.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game club.
It is. Some good, some bad. But yeah, I won't say anymore.
Well, hopefully you'll say
a little bit.
Hopefully you'll say something in a couple of weeks when Game Club comes around.
Yeah, I will. But I've talked to you a little bit more about it, so you know kind of what I'm getting at. But I'm not gonna bring that up 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. What is it? Anyways, didn't mean to derail you there.
It's all right. The Paradox games have always kind of intrigued me, but I never really dove into them. Granted, I did pick up a couple in the last Paradox Humble Bundle. I got Crusader Kings 2, pretty much the base edition, which, talking about DLC, huh?
Yeah. Crusader Kings has got a lot of it. I've played I think I played the first Crusader King.
Yeah, I have the complete edition of that as well. Sometimes I should just go into my library and pick like 3 or 4 games that I should, sit down and play. Because there's things on my backlog that I've always meant to go back and play, but never really either had the time or the motivation to. But I look forward to understanding a bit more of this, and maybe Cube and I could play cooperatively, because if I play competitively with me, I may as well just uninstall.
Yeah. I don't know. Cube, do you play like a Kyle? Do you just blow up someone's planet when they've never played the fucking game before, Kyle? Yeah, I'm still bitter about that. It's been like 5 months, but I'm still bitter.
Why do you think I don't play strategy games against them? I know better. The only winning move is not to play. All right, shall we play a game?
Shall we? Okay, I mixed that up with the Saw one, I think, because I think that's what he says. Do you want? Anyways, were you?
I am.
I've emailed you twice now. Are you?
Yeah, there's not a lot to talk about on this because I'm still on the learning phase.
Right.
And I think next time, I'm not sure if I'm going to play another game of South Africa, at least at this point, because the South African economy, and nothing against South Africa or my friend there, is a little behind the times, to put it mildly. So the 3 years up until really World War II's tensions start to mount, I was spending pretty much the entire time just trying to build up the economy. And even then, I was still not doing great because the game does some interesting things. The different powers, the major powers have the ability to research multiple things at once. I think 4 or 5 research slots, depending on the country. And the ability to unlock more as you do different research and different country focuses, which are essentially a separate research tree. Well, South Africa starts with 2, and they only have 1 military factory, which the military factories are what produces your tanks, your guns, your aircraft, that sort of thing. And factories could only produce 1 type of thing at a time. And as a factory is producing things over a course of time, it gets better and better at it. So let's say, I'm just going to use some nice round numbers here, just for example's sake. Let's say I have my 1 factory building infantry weapons, guns. And it could make 10 a week, which is actually a bit better than what the factory could do in my game, but as it progresses and does more and more, the workers get used to how to make them and become more efficient. So it may eventually get up to like 30 or 40 a week before it hits the efficiency cap. And there's research that you could do to increase that cap. So you're motivated to get the best stuff that you can as quickly as you can and then stick with it for a while. And the time period isn't like Civ, where you're in almost a constant upgrading things or, trashing things and changing them. because there's always the chance that you'll need that stockpile of old stuff for a new division because you don't have the latest stuff, or you want to have just an expeditionary force, so you don't want to invest your best and brightest gear. You want to just outfit them with the older stuff to be able to field a force. Or maybe all your planes got shot down in time to roll out the Death Trap Mark 1.
Death Trap Mark 1. Nice.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what the early airplanes were.
Yeah.
So it's you're encouraged to produce for quite a while the same things. But when you switch over, there's an upgrade time as the troops change out their stuff. And that goes all back to essentially the central stockpile, which you could then either lend-lease out to other powers for favor, or, just set on it to be able to quickly outfit a backup troop. There's some really interesting strategy stuff behind the scenes. And I'm looking forward to getting more into it.
Sweet.
Look at it this way. It's gotten me out of the city skylines and managing traffic. Fucking idiots.
Yep. Most drivers are.
Well, these are
exceptional.
Time. These just sit in the middle of the intersection and block traffic in 4 directions.
Right.
Probably on their fucking cell phone. Playing Fortnite.
Oh God. If only I didn't have games to talk about and we didn't have another news topic ahead of that one, or 2 news topics ahead of that one.
Yeah, but that's a tease.
That would be an excellent segue. Yeah, that's it. Alrighty. Well, I played 3 games this week, excluding the Game Club game. And the first one of those is Loot Box Quest. Loot Box Quest is a satirical clicker-style game made by the same developer who made DLC Quest. And it's a game that's, it has a storyline that you play through and you can actually win the game. It's pretty short. It took me about 2.5 hours to completely play through it. And it does this nifty little thing that it pops up at the bottom and it's like, hey, you've been playing for about 90 minutes. If you don't like this game, now's the time to request a refund if you purchased it on Steam. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is $1.
It is. It's only $1. I actually contacted the developer and asked if he would do an interview, and he...
Maybe he'll just do an episode. It's like, no.
Yeah, maybe so. But, so the game evolves as you play through it. You start out as just like a dude who's very excited to get the new game, MacGuffin Quest 2. And MacGuffin Quest 2 has loot boxes, whereas MacGuffin Quest 1 didn't. And the game starts out, and you have to click to work your job to buy enough money, or to get enough money to pre-order the game, which gives you, I think, like the first loot box or something that you open, which opening the loot boxes doesn't do anything. You just have a counter for open loot boxes, and then you get garbage items, and then you can sell the trash items for money. But so you click to work your job to get enough money to buy the game, and then once you've worked your job enough times and you've pre-ordered it, like, the game releases, and then you get the MacGuffin Quest 2 thing that you can see in the screenshots in front of you. And then you can start playing the game. And it starts out as play, and after you fill up the bar a couple of times playing, then it's like, you get these little messages at the bottom of the screen. And it's like, okay, get MacGuffin Quest 2, playing it. It's like, what? I can't play as MacGuffin. I have to play as his sidekick, whatever. But it looks like I can get MacGuffin from a loot box. Well, I guess I'll just grind until I get the loot box that has MacGuffin
and it takes 40 hours.
And so you start going through and you're like, man, this grind is really boring. I should automate it. It's like learn coding. Create a bot to play MacGuffin Quest 2 for you. So you do that, and then it starts playing itself, and the bar fills up on its own. You get loot boxes. And it's like, I should get a second job so that I can make more money to spend more time developing more bots to play the game for you. And so you can get up to 5 bots to play the game. And as you go through, eventually it's like, okay, well, maybe I can make some extra money opening these loot boxes on YouTube. Or it's like, does it say YouTube? I can't remember if it says YouTube or if it's like a satire.
Probably YouTube. Yeah. You need something other than watching big titted ninjas.
Yeah. But so then you start making videos for YouTube or whatever, and you earn some money opening loot box videos, and eventually you like automate all of that stuff by making bots. And it's like you know, you get satirical messages at the bottom every time you research something or sort of hit a milestone in the game. Like, just looking at the screenshots, one of the things that I'm looking at is like you can research, I think it's called video intros and outros, and the satirical message pops up. It's like, now I don't have to say what's up, folks, all the time. So things like that, and then eventually the game evolves. You're like, you know, I bet I could make a game. So then you get the game studio and you make your own game, and it's one of the things you can research is loot boxes. And it's like, I swear I'm just doing this to because games are cost so much to develop, right? It's like, my loot boxes are going to be different. They won't be pay to win, right? Eventually your company gets big enough where then you start like having lobbyists that you send, and
to Hawaii.
You do something that's like too exploitative. It's like, the government now considers loot boxes as a type of gambling because of how exploitative your loot boxes are. Because it's like, one of the things that you can do is like make the entire game a loot box. It's like, you can't even play unless you pay to open the loot boxes. And the game dev management thing slowly gets more and more complex until you become like a publicly traded company, and then it becomes a different type of management game. It's really silly. I mean, it's satire, so, you know, that's what it's doing, is mocking the industry and where it goes. But there's some like serious points in there too. I forget exactly what one of the loot box things it is. I think it's pay money to remove ads from a game that you've already played, and the message that pops up at the bottom is like, you know, this one's probably going to happen. You know that, guys, right? Sad face. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it did at this point. So, you know, it makes its point, sometimes a little bit on the nose, and then the satire also makes the point.
And then you're
eventually you monetize the entire population of the Earth and like destroy the entire planet as we know it. And then you find the source code for MacGuffin Quest, and you change whatever it is in the game that lets you play as MacGuffin. It turns out you couldn't actually ever get MacGuffin from the loot box at all.
I was kind of seeing that one comment. It's like, you could never get him, could you?
Yeah, it's like, you could never get him, but he exists in the game. So it's like, oh, I'm going to use my knowledge of coding to make him playable. So then everything goes away, and you just hit play MacGuffin Quest. And so you play through, fill up the bar a few times, and every time you get a message, you're like, oh, this is okay, I guess. Kind of boring, really. The game's just really not the same whenever you play it the way I'd like to, because there's so many loot boxes in it. I guess I should play another game. Oh, wait. The entire industry collapsed because I ruined it with loot boxes. I guess I should go outside, and then you hit go outside, and the game ends, and it closes. I was like, what a beautiful little metaphor for the gaming industry. But yeah, it was
Well, you're saying they should go outside?
No, not that part. Just the part about the industry collapsing.
Oh.
Beautiful little metaphor. I sort of like, I just basically doled out the entire like story progression, but
yeah, maybe we should run spoilers or something.
All of these little messages are really funny and each have a little point to make. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. And I mean, I can't remember most of those. There's dozens, because there's one for every single upgrade that you purchase or research or whatever based on what point you are in the game. And then oh, excuse me, that snuck up on me. There are other ones that pop up as you do things. You know, the first couple of times you play through MacGuffin Quest, for example, and he's like, wait, MacGuffin's in a loot box? I have to get him from a loot box? So that's where most of the game's fun is the satirical mess. So it's still, I mean, it's 99 cents. I would say just like buy this to support the dev, because it's good satire and honestly a decent little clicker game, because I like clicker games that don't go on forever. So this is one
and also ones are about potatoes.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Still need to go play that, actually. That's on the list of games that are in my backlog.
Yeah. But Loot Box Quest is a fun little satirical clicker game that makes fun of the industry and obviously loot boxes. So definitely a recommend for me. I don't know if it would ever go cheaper. Actually, it has been cheaper. It just looks like it was 75 cents a couple of months ago.
Oh no, the quarter.
It'll probably be, 50 cents or something at some point. I think this game is totally worth it.
Yeah, but will it be in a loot box?
I don't know.
Actually, isn't it on GOG?
I don't know.
Because,
is it?
The reason why I'm asking is GOG has a loot box sale going on right now.
Okay.
Where they're selling St. Patrick's Day hats, and you get a random game.
Okay.
That's why I was asking, because that would be hilarious.
It would be. As a sort of side note, DLC Quest is really fun too, and does the same sort of thing.
That's very
it's
poignant.
Making fun of DLC. DLC Quest is from like 5 or 6 years ago, so I feel like the dev has definitely grown in game design. I think the satire is funnier than in DLC Quest, but I mean they're doing the same sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think like DLC Quest, like one of the first things that one of the first DLCs you purchase is the ability to move left, and it's a side-scrolling platformer.
Well, why would you need to go backwards?
In order to get things that are behind you.
Forward only.
Like on the first screen, I think there's a chest you can't get that's like right behind you, but you can't walk left, so you can't just turn around and pick up the treasure chest. You have to go until you get the DLC to turn left, and then you can go back and get it. But yeah, Loot Box Quest, good. You should buy it. It's only $1. Totally worth it. The next game on my list is Holy Potatoes, We're in Space, which is the sort of sequel to Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop.
Yeah, another sort of clicker game.
Yeah, I say sort of sequel because the only real similarities it has to Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop, at least in the first couple of hours of play, are your people are potato people.
Like you do.
They're vastly different games in every other respect so far.
Yeah, it's almost faster than light.
Yeah, it's very FTL, actually. Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop is a management crafting game where that you like inherit this weapon shop and you have to recruit people to craft weapons for you, a la like some of the really simple arcadey management games like Game Dev Tycoon or something like that. Except, you put together weapons. And then there's sort of some other game mechanics that come on top of it where that you have to like equip adventurers to go on quests and like bring you back special materials. And there's this underlying story about your grandfather and some stuff that happened, and you sort of unravel a mystery. So Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop is, very, very crafting focused, management light, and you're sort of uncovering a story by getting adventurers to go out and do things for you. Holy Potatoes, We're in Space is much more FTL-like in the sense when it comes to the combat. Although it's more turn-based. FTL was real-time that you could pause. Holy Potatoes, We're in Space is turn-based, but it still uses the similar weapon system and a similar energy system, and then assigning crew to various weapons can give them boosts. It's fun. It's silly. It's got some weird performance issues that I don't understand. During the combat system, it gets really slow down, like frame hitchy.
Like it's trying to do too much?
Like it's trying to do too much, or they use the same engine and it just wasn't built with this in mind. It's locked at 60, which, I'm fine. Honestly, this is a game that would be fine locked at 30. There's so little movement and everything's turn-based and it's all cartoony and stuff.
Yeah, but you need your high frame rate potatoes. I
do need my high frame rate potatoes. But the game hitches really badly during the combat. Especially the higher level combat. So like it drops you into the tutorial and you've got like end game power type stuff. At least that's what it feels like. There may be stronger things, but things that are like 20 times more powerful than what you start with once you get dropped into the campaign proper.
Abilities.
Yeah. But there's like big explosions and things going on, and it's like crawling, frame. Oh, everything's happening at once now. Oh, frame. Whenever you do actions, it still hitches even at the really low level equipment that doesn't have very much like on-screen flair. It every single action causes there to be just a slight pause, and then it carries on. And that pause was there with the early game stuff, but then it would like freak out when there were so many things going on screen. So it has to be something either with the engine or like really poor optimization,
or it just doesn't like your computer.
That could be the case. I should try this on my laptop and see if it does the same sort of thing. Because my laptop is much, much less powerful, but also a completely different environment. So it could be something to do with my...
yeah, I'm just looking through the screenshots at all the different at the different references. It looks like one of the most popular ones is Saitama from One Punch Man.
Where's that one in the screenshots?
Oh, well, I was looking in the community hub.
Oh, okay. I haven't gotten that far. I've only played it for about 2-ish hours, I think. I want to play it some more, but I really can't stand that frame rate hitching. Other things, though, where it's like FTL, you're being chased by someone or something that I'm not quite sure who they are yet. I think it's like the big bad from the opening, but it also could be someone else. And there's a turn timer, and certain actions you perform while on your ship that aren't combat based take up time, or take up turns. So the counter's always counting down whenever you perform those actions with the ship getting closer. So far, I haven't had an issue with them like catching up to me, but it's just like always there. There's like an easy mode that turns that off, but it says, "Oh, that's great."
He's one pun man.
Tamago. That's nice. Yeah. Weapon Shop had stuff like that too. I don't remember a Saitama from Weapon Shop, although I think Weapon Shop came out before One Punch Man was a thing.
Well, at least an anime. The anime.
But
well, it was just that's the one that's all over the highest rated ones, or the most popular ones, I should say.
Yeah, but Holy Potatoes We're in Space is fun, and it's silly, and it's cute, and it's colorful, and it's funny. But honestly, I think the first one's better, and it's not even just the performance issues that may or may not just be my computer. It just feels like there's a lot less heart in it, or there's a lot less something. It just doesn't feel like the first one does. It's not as joyous as the first one, which that is extremely subjective, and that might be the most like, I don't know, pie in the sky comment I've ever made about a game. But when I played, like, I was so excited when I got this game, and I played it, and it didn't make me as happy inside as the first one.
I'm sorry, I'm just going through the screenshots.
Darth Tater. They had a Darth Vader reference in the first one too.
Really should get around to the other one, because I think I'll enjoy it more. FTL kind of wore on me for a bit after a bit because of the combat system, where it was a lot more luck based than I would really like my roguelites to be.
Yeah,
I really prefer my roguelites to, if I'm good enough, even if I have an extremely bad roll of the dice, I could at least make some sort of progress. FTL, it was all based on the roll of the dice, and if you didn't get at least decent weapons, unless you were in a very particular ship that was a non-combat focused ship like the stealth ones, you would be kind of screwed.
Yeah. Okay, they have another one. Did this one just release? Holy Potatoes, What the Hell? And this one is cooking?
Yeah, I thought I heard about them working on another one, but I didn't know it was coming out yet.
Yeah, Holy Potatoes, What the Hell is a wacky health-themed cooking management sim.
Yeah, I've heard about this. I just didn't know it was coming out yet.
See, this one seems like it was much more in line with what the first one was.
Well, it's also more management-based. Maybe it's just the fact that where what we've seen FTL, for lack of a better term, ripped off or inspiring other games so much that it's not as special as it once was.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I didn't enjoy Holy Potatoes We're in Space as much as I probably should, just based on how much I love sci-fi games and I love silly things and colorful things. And Holy Potatoes We're in Space hits all of those, but it just doesn't make me feel as happy. It just made me want to go, or it just made me want to play Holy Potatoes A Weapon Shop.
Okay,
I installed it, but
I want your opinion, since you know my game taste fairly well. If I picked up Holy Potatoes A Weapon Shop, would I absolutely hate it? Because you know how picky I can be about my management games.
That's a tough call. It's very management light. It's very much just get people with the right colors and put them at the right colored station.
Because I really disliked Game Dev Tycoon because it did pretty much that.
Yeah,
but
I don't know
this
if
also
rest of the game,
but this is also a lot more humor based.
Yeah, I don't know if the rest of the game could make up for your dislike of the management system, because you wouldn't like it. If you didn't like Game Dev Tycoon, you won't like this, because this is pretty heavily based on that. Match the right color to the right thing at the right station, and get your timings and everything just right so you get the most bonus points to get the best thing possible.
Honestly, it sounds more like a mobile game than anything else.
But what really props up the game is a combination of its humor and that sort of underlying story that unwraps itself as you go along. So it's a toss-up. I don't think that you would love it. I think that you would need to get it pretty cheap, like for $1 or $2 before you like it
low?
enough. It's pretty cheap.
Well,
I think it's only like $5 or $6 right now.
Well, I was looking at it. It was it's $5.77. That's why I was looking at it, thinking, huh. And they're doing that thing where you have to buy the DLC pack with it.
Yeah,
because the base game isn't discounted at all.
Yeah, I think you'd need to get it for sub $5 in order to appreciate it and like it, just because you would thoroughly dislike the management system. So, I mean, it's $15 to just buy the game.
Yeah, I mean, it would be with the DLC bundle because it has the base game in it for $5.77. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't played the DLC. I don't actually have the DLC. So for $5.77, I don't know. That's pretty close. I mean, I'm saying, sub $5, and this is just over $5.
Or, we have the summer sale coming up before terribly long now.
Yeah, it's been much cheaper. I mean, Holy Potatoes has been down to, it looks like $3.74 before, and I'm pretty sure you'd like it for that amount. So probably just wait till the sale.
Yeah, until then we'll just hash it out.
So
Space Dark Souls.
That brings me to the final game on my list, The Surge. And The Surge is, if someone said, "What if Dark Souls, but sci-fi?"
If you listen closely, I think you can hear Kyle's eye twitch.
Yeah, Kyle said he was going to send in a letter this week, but he didn't, so he doesn't get a chance to defend himself live on air, so to speak. Although Kyle and I did have like a 10 or so minute conversation about this over the weekend, and I'll talk about some of those nuances in a bit. And a lot of that's going to be coming from Kyle's perspective, because I've played Dark Souls for a collective total of about 6 hours over the last 6 years, with most of that being in the last week or 2 weeks. So, I don't exactly have the deepest Dark Souls understanding to pit this against. But based on my limited experience and my overall knowledge of Dark Souls and Bloodborne to some extent, just from sort of the popular gaming culture, this is, what if Dark Souls, but sci-fi? The Surge is a sci-fi future dystopia world where the Chinese hoax is killing us all. And there's one company that survives or buys up all the other companies. I'm not 100% sure. The story sort of reveals itself as it goes. You get an opening cutscene that basically sets up the world, and it does this really wonderful thing where you discover your character. Like the cutscene plays, and it's basically like a Creo. Creo's the name of the company. It's a recruitment message, and it's like, we're offering you employment. Do you accept? And like you see your character's hand hesitate, and then he hits the accept key, and then the camera's behind you, and you can't fully see your character, only his head, and it doesn't allow you to move the camera until you get off of this train. Mm-hmm. And you realize that your character is in a wheelchair. He can't walk. He's paraplegic. And one of the things that this company does is it's developed powered exosuits, and they would allow him to walk again. And so that's sort of the setup for why he ultimately, I think, like pushes him over the edge to accept the job offer from this company, is because he wants to be able to walk again. And for the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, you're wheeling around in your wheelchairs. You go through the facility, and you have to take this ass backwards way through it because you're in a wheelchair, so you have to use the accessible ramps and things like that. It's a really interesting way to introduce the game, and I give it some applause, because that's a pretty bold step. I mean, that's the first 10 or 15 minutes of your game.
Hey, I thought you said this was accessible, wheelchair accessible. Step?
Hi-oh. But yeah, it's a really bold way to introduce the game, because they're trying to hook you, not with like gameplay mechanics or anything like that, but hook you into this character and make you really sympathize with him, and why you would understand why he would join this company, which is pretty controversial. Even in the first 15 or 20 minutes of the game, like, you see some pretty big backlash against this company. Like, people are calling them evil, and there's terrorist organizations that are trying to take this company down because it's basically taken over the world, all the world's governments and everything. And there are people that believe that they're not actually trying to fix the environment or anything like that, but they're actually doing something nefarious, which seems to be true. I think I have, in the 6 or so hours that I've played this game, I think I have an idea of where the story's going to go. But that was just a really interesting thematic hook into the world and into your character, who spends a good portion of the game completely silent, aside from the grunts and screams whenever you fight and subsequently get killed. There is some dialogue between your character and other characters, but it's very sparse.
I was about to say, does he go full Gordon Freeman and just sits there?
No, it's not that much, but you'll walk up to someone and they'll be like, "Hey, you over here, you're a normal person. You're not one of these crazy cyborgs."
About that.
And you walk up and you're like, "Hey." And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I found you, blah, 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 blah." And you're like, "Okay, it's that way."
Isaitama.
There's one character that he has more in-depth dialogue interactions with. It's someone, like the first person you meet, you get in touch with him over the comms. And he's got a bit more in-depth conversation with her, but it's still fairly sparse. It's like short sentences, not just like grunts and one-word answers. But, so, yeah, you're in this facility, and obviously something goes wrong, and all of the robots start attacking people, and lots of people in their exoskeletons die, and also this thing is jacked into your brain. That's
like
how
you do,
like you do with all cyborg suits. You jack them into your brain, and so these people die, and then the cyborg suits take over their body, heavily implying that there's some kind of artificial intelligence that has gotten loose or malfunctioned, or maybe it's actually doing it on purpose.
Well, quick, don't network your suit.
Yeah, well, the whole thing goes down as you're getting your suit installed. So you, the process malfunctions and you get your suit installed, but your neural link isn't properly installed or something like that. So you wind up passing out, and then you wake up as a recycling bot is dragging you to a junk heap.
Like you do.
As you do, yeah. And then you wake up and you pick up a giant piece of rebar and wield that as a weapon. They do another thing with the walking too, because it's like you kick the drone and destroy the first one, and you stand up and you look at your legs and you're like, "Holy shit, I can walk again!" And then a drone starts attacking you, and you pick up a weapon and you start fighting. So I'm curious to see how that continues to play further into the story. It's been mentioned a couple of times later as I've been playing, but it's fallen much more into the background, the fact that you did this just so you could walk. But the gameplay itself feels much more, or feels like a combination of what I know about Bloodborne and Dark Souls. Whereas in Bloodborne, they really focus on dodging as opposed to blocking. The blocking system in Bloodborne is basically a parry, which will block all damage from you, and then you can counterattack. You can block, but it only blocks a portion of the damage. But they really heavily encourage you to dodge and kind of jump in and out and attack that way.
And now I'm having Dragon Ball Bridge flashbacks. Dodge!
Whereas Dark Souls, you can play both as a dodgy character and as a tanky, blocky character. And the Surge gives you limited ability to block. Heavy weapons can block for more damage than light weapons. So if you go for a big, bulky build, you have more ability to block. But anything really from like medium weapons on down, you should really be dodging or parrying. The game is very stingy with the health that it gives you and the stamina points that it gives you. As far as I can tell, you can't increase your stamina points. I'm almost level 30, and my stamina has not increased a single point since I started the game. So it's either completely gear dependent, or you just have to increase your skills with weapons to give you effectively more stamina, because your weapon swings and your combos would take less stamina to use. And if you run out of stamina, you're fucked. You just have to run away and let your stamina recharge for a minute. Because if you don't have any stamina, you can't attack at all. And if you're at low stamina, you attack very slowly. So you can see where that's happening. Your character starts to appear and behave and feel much more sluggish. So even if you're not staring at the stamina bar, you can see it happen. There's really good on-screen
in-world
telegraphing of that. Yeah, there's really good in-world telegraphing of that. And there's good telegraphing of if you're hurt too. The game does a good job of showing you when you're stumbling around, bleeding, and it does the same for your enemies. You definitely want to target lock enemies. You can't perform finishing moves if you don't target lock. And that's how you get all of your equipment. You perform excuse me. You perform finishing moves and cut off whatever body part it is that you've targeted.
Like
and
you
then
do.
And then you get the gear of whatever they were using. So if you cut off a weapon arm, you get the weapon. If you cut off an arm that doesn't have a weapon, you get whatever armor piece was on that. Same for the chest and the head and the legs. So that's how you get all of your armor parts. And if you've already got the armor part that drops, then you just automatically turn that into crafting components to upgrade your weapons and gear or build new ones based on schematics that you can find in the world outside of just getting the armor. Also, there's one of the ways that you can regenerate health is if you take an upgrade. I think it's a CPU upgrade for your suit. You can regenerate health from finishing moves. This game's also super stingy with its health it's like health packs or whatever. There's a heal over time, an instant heal, and then you can heal with the finishing move. And so far, that's all I found. And you only get 3 of each: the heal over time and the instant heal. The finishing move heal, you have an infinite amount of use from it, but you have to perform finishing moves on enemies, so you're constantly in combat, which combat is fucking difficult and at times very unfair feeling. From my experience with Dark Souls, every time I died, it was definitely my fault. I missed something, or I didn't take my time to figure out what I was doing, or something like that. You know, I mentioned that when I talked about Dark Souls last week. Yeah, last week. The Surge, occasionally enemies will just perform an attack from out of nowhere that doesn't make sense. Like, this attack isn't telegraphed in any way that I've been able to notice. And sometimes it's in the middle of when they're being hit. Typically there's like a stagger mechanic whenever you or the enemy gets hit, especially with a heavy vertical strike, or with heavier weapons in general. They'll stagger, or you will get staggered, and then you can't perform an action. But sometimes, in the middle of being staggered, enemies will just be able to hit you with a quick attack. which can throw you off balance or kill you if you're low health and trying to get that finishing move, which will send you back to the medical center. Just a second. I hit the mute on that one. I felt that one coming. But you'll get sent back to the medical center, which is this game's equivalent of the bonfire, and you'll have to go get this game's tech something, which is the equivalent of souls from Dark Souls, your currency to spend on upgrades. But unlike Dark Souls, this game has a timer on that mechanic. It's 2.5 minutes. You have 2.5 minutes to get back to wherever you died and recover all of your stuff. And most of the time, I'm just like, fuck it. Because I go very slowly and very methodically, because this game also likes to produce jump scare enemies from places that sometimes don't make sense, or sometimes they'll spawn behind you. And they always do it at the exact same place, so once you've been there once, you know what's coming. But if you're not going really slowly and carefully, you'll more than likely just get killed. And then you'll have to try and run back to that spot and recover your stuff. So I just leave it. I get most of my level up currency through getting the items, which you can like deconstruct to give you experience points. And items don't get dropped, so it's only your equivalent of experience that gets dropped. And so that's really frustrating too. I really usually can only play the Surge for 1 hour, an hour and a half at a time. I like the game. Like, I get it. I used to not get Dark Souls players, but I get it. Like that frustration and like, why can you be so angry at a game and so frustrated and still have fun? But I get it. I like that with the Surge. But I have to put it down every 90 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn on if I would like this or not.
Yeah. It also does the Dark Souls thing where that whenever you go back to the medical center / bonfire, all the enemies respawn. So they don't respawn while you're out. So you can explore freely if you've killed everything in an area and look for secrets, which there's tons of secrets. And lots of the game's story is telegraphed to you through hidden things that you can find, messages on the wall or staged scenes where you are left to sort of interpret what happened. There's a big hint for the first boss battle that is just written on a wall on an out-of-the-way path that you don't actually have to go to.
And let me guess, you found it afterwards.
No, I found it beforehand. The boss was still fucking difficult to beat. But I knew what to do going into the boss fight. It was just being able to do it. Because the health system is, your health is very low, and the boss had untelegraphed attacks, which happened at random. Most of the bosses, at least the first boss, most of his attacks did have a pattern, and I learned the pattern, and eventually I was just able to beat him by being able to be good enough at the pattern to not get killed whenever the off-pattern attacks happened. I could soak the damage, and I had enough health packs to do so, because I couldn't perform a finishing move on the boss to get health back that way. But yeah, eventually that's how I beat the boss. But even knowing, like, the secret made it really difficult. And it turns out there's like a new game plus, and there are better items you can get from all of the bosses if you beat them in one specific way. And the way to get it from the first boss. So the first boss, the thing that you use against him is he's got like a bar that fills up. I don't know, think it was like a rage meter or something.
Yes.
And whenever it fills up, he launches missiles at you. And if you sprint over and like dash between his legs, the missile will hit him and knock him down, and then you can directly attack his power core. The way to like get the true boss ending or whatever is to not do that and basically hack away at him until eventually you cut his legs off and then destroy the power core. And the legs have got ridiculous amounts of health, apparently. Like, I looked this up after the fact, and it takes something like 20 or 25 minutes to defeat the boss that way versus like the 5 it took me to do. So you basically have to play perfectly for 25 minutes to kill this boss.
But is it worth it?
I don't know. I didn't look up what the stats were on the weapon that you get from him afterwards, so I'm not sure. And also, this game very clearly has areas that you should come back to when you're at a higher level. It's got like this override mechanic where your suit has to be a certain level before you can open specific doors.
Yeah, like you do.
Like a little thing. And there's stuff in the first level or in the first area that requires you to be like level 55. So you definitely have to come back. As for that stuff I was talking about when I talked to Kyle about it, A lot of the points that Kyle made, because I think his tweet was something like, "The Surge is not dark sci-fi Dark Souls" in like all caps or something like that. And a lot of the points that he were making were, well, the Surge borrows, or some of the points he made to me were, the Surge borrows from Bloodborne in the way that a lot of its combat works, as opposed to Dark Souls, with, you know, the focus being more on dodging and things like that, as opposed to just directly blocking. The Surge has no multiplayer component at all. It's strictly single player, which I prefer, but Kyle likes the multiplayer that exists in Dark Souls.
Oh, he likes sticking people over.
And then he said he felt like the game didn't convey its mechanics to you properly, and it took him a lot longer than he felt like it should to learn about like cutting the arms and armor off of enemies to equip them. But I felt like it conveyed that to you really quickly and effectively, and we were going to talk about it some more if we had the chance, that we didn't get to. But my thought was maybe he's just used to Dark Souls and this is different, and so he didn't pick up on it because he's got Dark Souls ingrained in his brain, whereas I'm basically a fresh player, so I picked up on that stuff much easier. He also didn't like what I said about the enemies sort of jump scaring, popping up on you, some of them basically being instant kills unless you're just amazing, until you come back and know what's going to happen so you can prepare for it. We agreed on that one. Kyle's biggest issue, I think, with the game, though, is that the Surge is 100% melee combat, whereas Dark Souls has ranged options, and the spellcaster, and there's like bombs you can throw, and you also have you can get bow and arrow. The Surge's only ranged option is an ability that you pick up in the second area, which gives you like a little drone that you can, when you get enough charge on your suit, doing combo attacks and stuff, which is how you can do the finishing moves. Instead of doing a finishing move, you can have the drone come out and provide range support for a little while. And that's the only ranged option for the Surge, which I kind of like that. Having played the Dark Souls, like knowing the Dark Souls, having played Dark Souls, knowing when to go ranged versus not in normal combat, as a new player or an inexperienced player, can be difficult to tell. There were plenty of times when I was using like a fireball spell or something, and I probably shouldn't have. It was too close to me, and I was like hurting myself or whatever. So only focusing on the melee combat system, and in my opinion, doing it fairly well, I think is a smart move for the Surge. If there's a second one, maybe add ranged options, because there are a couple of ranged enemies that have ranged attacks that will, you know, fire on you as you close the distance on them, and then they swap to melee combat. So having a similar ranged option might be, as far as where it stands for me now, I think it was a positive thing to focus only on melee. So overall, I like it. It's incredibly frustrating and makes me mad at times, but that's the type of game that this is. And having one that's sci-fi, because my thing is sci-fi, gives me something enjoyable, or, you know, like a more enjoyable world than Dark Souls. And I can get behind the mechanics, and I can get behind the idea of the game when the theme is more enjoyable to me. So I really like the Surge. You know, this type of game is not for everyone, and if you, it sounds like after a short discussion with Kyle, if you really, really, really like Dark Souls, you might not like the Surge for the points of, you know, comparison where it is different. But if you're someone who just sort of likes this style of game, or maybe likes the Dark Souls, I did it again, likes Dark Souls but doesn't really like the world,
well, maybe it's like you know, the Africa or the Iraq, you know.
Yeah, but you know, the Surge might be something worth trying. I picked it up on sale 2 weeks ago for like $15 or $16. It's back up to its full retail release, which is $40 for the standard and $50 for the complete edition, which includes all of the DLC. You know, I don't know if I would have liked it as much if I'd paid $40 for it. But at its, you know, at the $15, $16 price point, I definitely feel like I got good value for my money. That, again, is something that's more subjective, but I think this game is worth, to someone who wants to try it out, I would say it's worth like $20 And then to someone who knows that they like this style of game, it probably would be worth the full price to you. So, yeah, that's The Surge. What if Dark Souls but sci-fi? I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I think I'm just going to wait on it.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair indeed. Alrighty. Well, it is time for us to move on then to our first bathroom break of the night. And the news when we come back. Moving on to our first news topic of the evening. Trump's ESA roundtable meeting that also included the ESRB and
wait, it included the SRB?
Yeah, the SRB, the SRB.
No, or did you not catch what they did?
No, what did I miss?
Okay, the ESRB. Let me make sure I get her name correctly, but they essentially called the ESRB a representative a man.
Oh, the thing with what's her name?
It was Patricia, but she goes by Pat, and they assume male, and just it was. There's at least have to take some humor out of this because, well, I honestly don't expect a lot to come out of this. This is more just a smokescreen that the NRA kicked up, really. That's my opinion of it. Because, well, we've seen Trump go very deep. Well, okay, deep is probably not the right term for Trump. Focused. He'll get very focused on a very particular issue for a while. And then something happens, he gets a lobbyist or something, and then he just wanders off and nothing ever happens of it again. Like, the opiate epidemic. He called it a national emergency.
Yeah, and we haven't heard anything about that in
a year.
Yeah, a while.
And
the same thing does seem to have happened with the NRA and gun control measures, because he said something to the effect of, you guys are all afraid of the NRA, and he wanted to take everyone's guns and go through due process later.
Yeah, which is absolute bullshit.
Yeah. But now it's like gun control what?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people saying that this is him like giving in to the NRA and being cowed down by them or whatever. But yeah, I think that it's more just like he's wandered off to his next thing because he has the attention span of a 5-year-old.
I think you're giving him too much credit for 5-year-old. I think your son has more of an attention span.
Yeah, he'd probably do a better job running the government too. My kid's hit that stage where he realizes that things are fair and unfair, and something will happen. He's like, Daddy, that's unfair.
So Chutes and Ladders is no longer fun.
Yeah. But he'll be like, Daddy, that's unfair. It's like, oh, like, there's that moment where, like, in my brain, I want to go, yeah, well, the world's not fair, kid. But I'm a better parent than my parents were, so I don't do that. And I'm just like, I know, son. Sometimes life can be hard. We can talk about it. But yeah, he understands fair and not fair. He wants things to be fair. So just on that basis, I think my kid would be could run the government.
Well, wait. How much does he like cheeseburgers?
Not very much.
Oh, then it wouldn't work.
My kid likes hamburgers, and he likes cheese, but never the two shall meet. Otherwise, it's instant. I don't want this. It's terrible.
Kids are weird.
Kids are incredibly weird and dumb. Kids are really dumb. My kid can be really dumb. I'm not going to turn this into a podcast about my kid, but he can be really dumb. Anyways.
Speaking of dumb things, let's start off with what he started off with. The montage. He kicked off this roundtable. Granted, it wasn't open to the press, so we only really have a few statements to go by on what was actually contained in this press conference, or in this, I shouldn't say press conference because Trump definitely wouldn't be there. this roundtable discussion that is all smoke and mirrors. He kicked it off with a montage of, well, he tried to find the most brutal things, but most of these were knife attacks, weren't they?
Yeah.
He wanted to talk about how video games causes mass shootings, and a lot of this wasn't gunplay.
Yeah, it was knife and blunt force weapons that was doing doing most of the damage.
Yeah, and also most of the games were pretty old by this point. I'm honestly surprised they didn't try out Manhunt.
Yeah. Yeah, which, for the time, Manhunt was pretty grotesque. Nowadays, it's not, but...
I mean, it still gets a little intense, but the graphics are almost cartoonish now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what is on the list. I know it was mostly Call of Duty, actually, which is...
Yeah, there were several Call of Duty
which is also
ones.
a little ironic because that is more in a military aspect,
Yeah. It's interesting because Call of Duty tends to glorify the U.S. military. There are certain bits, like in, I believe it's Modern Warfare 2, where the general winds up being the bad guy.
Dude, spoilers.
But in general, Call of Duty tends to glorify the U.S. military, so you'd think that they wouldn't want to show that. Very quickly watching the montage, I don't recognize this game.
What point?
There's the few clips from the various Call of Duties.
What's the timestamp? I have it up.
Timestamp starts at roughly 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Probably Evil Within, because they covered that quite a bit. But once again, that's throwing knives or axes or something.
Yeah, axes. And then the 30-second mark, that's when the guy puts him on the meat hook.
And also love that some of these have YouTuber water stamps or watermarks.
Yeah. Then they show No Russian from
unironically.
Yeah. I wonder if they realized what that is, shooting up a Russian airport. Gonna make Putin mad. There's some stuff from Wolfenstein, which is killing Nazis. I think we can all say that that's allowed. And then there's some stuff from Fallout, killing ghouls.
Yeah, the Fallout one is just hilarious because he shoots him, 3-4 times?
Yeah.
And then he finally gets the kill shot? Which, that's so fucking cartoonish. How can anyone above the age of 6, see that as anything realistic? Which is, this is where we're coming back around to Fallout, where Fallout is a parody almost. Especially in its gunplay.
Yeah. I mean, there is some gore, and you can in Fallout make the game extra gory with the bloody mess perk, but Fallout again is a game that is rated
and
mature, which is 17 and older in the States.
Yeah, and that's really where we should probably focus on this, is that they're talking about mature rated games, and these are not marketed towards kids, or at least in theory, because you do get some marketing where they focus on the teenagers. But once again, that is the market where they already know better. And wasn't there a study that came out recently that was talking about mass shooters not being interested in video games at all?
Yeah, it was an aggregate study that looked at mass shooters for, I think, since Columbine. It might have gone a little bit before that. But it was 80% didn't really care for video games.
Yeah, and the one case isn't even a school shooter. Wasn't it someone in Scandinavia where they talked about they learned how to handle a holographic sight from Call of Duty?
I don't remember that bit.
I'm blanking on the name, thankfully, because honestly, we shouldn't be glorifying the shooters. And the fact that we have this 24-hour news cycle where we show the picture, we talk about them constantly, we go into the background, talk about what they do, focus on the people that are actually affected.
Did you watch the Gymquisition for this week?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's that part towards the middle to end of the video where he starts showing news clips, and then they come on and they're
Yeah,
like,
where
look,
they're
we were going to do this montage and like make fun of it, but there's a lot of really disturbing imagery shown on the news. And once we got to the guy on fire, we just stopped and we're like, we can't do any of the rest of the stuff.
they talk about
but...
how video games desensitize people to violence because you're in control. But then you look at the news and just how graphic it was. Probably the biggest example I could think of off the top of my head is the Boston Marathon bombing. I mean, that was
they
fucking
played that clip.
That was
over and over and over,
and it was graphic.
You could see like body parts and shit being blown off because it's a bomb. But I'm like, Jesus.
Or if you even want to go,
why are they showing this on the news?
Or if you want to go back, let's say 17 years. How about when 9/11 happened and they showed those clips over and over and over again, scaring people.
Yeah, people jumping out of windows and being on fire and all kinds of horrible things that maybe like in the immediate coverage when everything is happening, like some of that stuff shows up. But
this was weeks and months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes even years. And several of the documentaries I've seen that we had to watch them in school. I remember being in high school. Maybe it was let's see, 2001, middle school or high school, where that they were showing us like a documentary for a certain like 5 year after, and that stuff was shown, and we're sitting in a classroom. Pretty sure it was middle school because I was in elementary school, so like 4th or 5th grade. So,
fuck you, make me feel old.
Yeah, I know, right?
Get off my fucking lawn.
So yeah, it would have been like late middle school, early high school, and we're watching this and they show that footage several times in the documentary, and like we're in school, like we all sat down as a school in the auditorium and watched this video, and that's way worse in my opinion than graphic video game violence. But yeah, we're horribly derailed.
Natural.
Maybe we're not. I don't know. It's in the same
really, because it does tie into the major argument that the groups that we had here was it was Take-Two Interactive. It was I've been trying to find the master list of everyone that showed up. We had the ESRB. Okay, here it is. So we had Marco Rubio as a senator because he hasn't been a fucking embarrassment lately. Vicky Howitzer from Missouri, and Martha Roby from Alabama. And then we had Take-Two Interactive. We had Rockstar. Then we had Dave Grossman on killing the psychological cost of learning to kill in war in society and the assassination generation, video games, aggression, and the psychology of killing. Because I think we know where that's going, huh?
Yeah.
Mr. Pat Vance, president of the Entertainment Software Rating Board. Which I'm sure Trump was wondering why there was a woman there because he was talking about how video games should have some sort of rating.
Yeah.
Man,
they really put this ratings board together quickly. I said it and it happened. I joke, but at the same time, not really in the back of my head, pretty close to the front, I'm going, I wonder if he thought that.
Yeah, the president of the ESA, Mike Gallagher, the chairman and CEO of ZeniMax, Robert Altman, and Melissa Hunson, mother from Parents Television Council. That's her entire thing. She's a mother, so she's highly outraged. Which the Parents Television.
Joking when I said they brought a mom.
Yeah, the Parents Television Council is also an interesting case because they are pretty much an outrage outreach group. And no, I'm not joking about that.
No, I'm familiar with that.
So
I mean, basically, from
outside of one guy that is pretty biased against video games, there's no one here that could even have a scientific statement, which I'm sure the psychological cost of learning to kill is very scientific, right?
Yeah, I had never heard of that guy or that book before. if I can find it somewhere free, like at a library or by perusing the interwebs
Yarg.
for free ebooks, I might give it a once over and see what he has to say in the book.
If you do, let me know when you're reading it so I can sit and watch on Twitter.
Okay. But yeah, basically, as far as we can tell from what statements have been made, everyone on the side of video games showed up, presented a bunch of research that states that there's no connection to violent video games and promoting violence. And everyone on the other side said, nah. And then they all went home.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's see. Well, let's put it this way. I searched Dave Grossman, and he comes up Psychologically research group. So, oh boy.
Yeah. So as far as video game studies go, the last time we talked about this a year or two ago, I talked pretty much at length about what I had firsthand familiarity with, just because I did like my senior thesis on psychology of video games and studied this a whole bunch. And since that time, and in some of the other years between, there have been something like another 200 major studies plus several hundred sort of aggregate studies that have been done, and not a single study has ever proved a link between violent video games and violence. And sure, obviously there's going to be outliers where they use poor science and poor statistics and yada yada, blah blah blah. If I sat down and went through all of them, I know I would find some that were wrong. But the early major studies that were done that I used as part of my research for my senior thesis had good science. They were spot on then. And, this is one of those things that you sort of have to study over time. But over the course of about a 10-year period, when 5 major studies and about 24 smaller studies were done on the subject, not one found any link. And it actually worked the other way. Not necessarily
as an
violent
outlet.
Video games. Yeah. People who had a tendency to play video games, regardless of whether or not they were violent, those areas tended to have lower crime rates, and especially violent crime rates, because basically they have an outlet and they have a hobby, so they're not out roaming the streets with the chance to get into trouble. So, and as far as I could tell from just a brief going through the aggregate studies, which, in case you don't know, an aggregate study takes a look at a set of sort of larger, more in-depth studies and puts them all together and tries to draw a conclusion based on those studies that's more digestible to someone to read. You don't want to do aggregate studies of aggregate studies, but aggregate studies themselves can be very useful tools for pulling together huge amounts of data and making them easier to read and understand. So the aggregate studies that I've looked at that have come out in the last 5-ish years all continue to show the same result from the earlier studies performed by the U.S. government, and I believe it was the Denmark or Norway that did a big study. Germany did a big study. I think there was one that was commissioned by the EU. This is like knowledge I'm pulling from like, I don't know, the better part of a decade ago. That's too far. 5 or 6 years ago. So, some of it might be a little bit fuzzy, but on specifically where the research was done. But anyways, my point being that research continues to prove this fact that video games do not cause violence, and instead they contribute to lowered rates of violence. I mean, I think we all know that. I've been hammering on about it for years at this point, but it's just one of those things, like, this government, and for a long time, honestly, a lot of politicians, I'm not exempting the Democrats on this one,
are hugely anti-science.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, bigly.
Particularly the Republican government, but on this one issue, a lot of Dems have, for some reason, carried on the torch against the face of science and research. So, probably because it's popular. That's one of those things that's popular. Let's beat up on the video games. Especially a decade or two ago when they were much smaller, a much smaller industry. Now you only see mostly the GOP doing this, or conservatives doing this.
Yeah, sorry. I've been poking around trying to find this book. Finding it on Amazon for $10 to $15.
Yeah, it's not worth that. It's not worth anything. That's why I'm going to get it for free from somewhere.
Well, you could use it as a doorstop.
I already have doorstops. I have bricks outside that are perfectly capable of doing that. But I told myself before we started the show that I was not going to get political. So I'll accept like 15% political. I don't want to go off the deep end, though. Do we have anywhere else to go with this?
Well,
anything that you want to do to try and steer us back on track?
Well, there was an interesting response from Games for Change, where they put together a counter montage of heartwarming and inspiring moments from Horizon Zero Dawn, Life is Strange, Minecraft, Overwatch, which not sure why they already have Overwatch in there, Fortnite, Firewatch, and Never Alone.
Wasn't there some Ori and the Blind Forest in there?
Well, that's the quick list that they listed on here. But yeah, there was Ori and the Blind Forest as well. And this will be in the show notes as well under the PC Games In, or maybe I'll just clip it out into its own thing. And this is showing the kind of the counter argument where the politicians are going on and on and on about the mature video games, the rated R, essentially. It's like bitching about the summer blockbusters that are too violent when the kids are all watching, Pixar movies. So this is showing not quite the Pixar, but it's a interesting counterpoint, and it's an argument that I haven't really seen anyone talking about, is the fact that there are games out there for children that aren't these hyper-violent, hyper-realistic murder simulators that the politicians keep going on and on and on about, and keep bringing up this tired, old, scaremongering tactic, which, granted, that is Trump's primary strategy, is to bring up scaremongering old fears. And this is something that really should be watched, honestly. It doesn't do it justice just to say, oh, it's a quick montage, because it's a lot of thought-provoking scenes and a lot of cute moments that are appropriate for children, that children should at least be exposed to. And it's like arguing, well, children shouldn't watch The Terminator because it may make them scared. Yeah, because it's not rated for them.
Yeah, that's not a movie intended for kids to be any part of the audience. There's most things, pretty much everything in life exists on a bell curve, and video games are no exception. You've got the extreme end with the mature and the occasional adults-only game out on the right. Then the big bulk of your games fit into this, somewhere in the middle where they are intended to be played by very wide audiences.
Yeah, late children to adults.
Yeah. And then you've got the other extreme end where games are designed for children, or I would say like education games might feel. Things like that. So the vast majority of your games are not in this audience, or, they're not intended to be viewed by a young audience, but yet those are the ones that everyone picks on. And it happens to games, movies, it's happened to books before, music. Yeah, they always go for the stuff that's not intended for kids. And yeah, absolutely. There are kids who play Call of Duty. There are kids who play Grand Theft Auto. And while it's a popular sort of, meme or whatever, it's like, oh, everyone that plays Call of Duty is a kid and all this other stuff. By and large, they're not really. Most kids aren't playing Call of Duty. Most kids aren't playing Grand Theft Auto.
Or they're playing Fortnite.
Any Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, they're playing Fortnite because it's free. And kids don't have money. So, it happens. But that's an issue more with parents or with kids who are just smart enough to outsmart their parents, which I guess still comes down to parents.
Yeah, we've seen the entire idea of painting an entire medium due to its outliers over and over again. It's just a scare tactic.
Yeah.
And this is, well, like we talked about in the very beginning, a complete smokescreen, because guns in this country make people absolutely fucking insane. There was a rather interesting podcast, another one of my NPR podcasts. They've been getting very extremely political lately, more so than usual, talking about the history of the NRA, how they pretty much went from overnight responsible gun ownership and marksmanship to ultra Second Amendment touters, and that there should be no control on guns whatsoever. Literally overnight at one meeting.
Did you see the Last Week Tonight episode about NRA TV?
Yes.
That was hilarious, but also scary.
Yeah.
Like, not like in a, oh my god, I'm scared that like they're gonna, I don't know, do something, but like, oh my god, these people
are insane.
They're people that believe this shit.
And the thing is, it's impossible to parody because it's so far out there. It's sort of like our current political situation where no matter what you parody, no matter what comedy you write, it's nowhere near reality.
Yeah. Is the proper way to parody something like this to make it normal and respectful?
I'm not sure because then it gives some sort of credence, some sort of legitimacy to it, where
fair point.
Where if you try to play off this debate as completely rational, then you have people that don't get the joke.
Yeah.
But for all we've talked about here, for all the round and round about this, I would be shocked that anything happens about this because we've pretty much seen this already start to die down.
Yeah.
It's really going to take prolonged outcry from the politicians because Trump, like you said, has a very short attention span and he's already going on about the Space Force.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And
to be fair, though,
no, that's not Mel Brooks' new take on Star Wars. Even though that would be hilarious.
I mean, to be fair, I'd rather him be talking about Space Force than just randomly from out of nowhere starting trade wars or maybe actual wars. So, all things considered, that's not the worst thing he could be doing right now.
Maybe we should just put him in front of a video game. Give him a babysitter.
Yeah. That would be... It would work.
Poetic justice?
Poetic justice. I think that's a good place to end this and move on.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to come back to this one for a very, very long time. But honestly, we may as well just shake the magic 8-ball because it's tough to tell these days.
Indeed.
I guess we'll just have to see if there's another mass shooting that gets the same media attention.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that.
Well, there's already been a couple. Matter of fact, there was one today or yesterday where a teacher accidentally discharged his firearm in class.
Oh my god.
Arm the teachers.
Oh my god.
I
just buried my head in my hands, by the way.
I could hear your spirit breaking. Yeah,
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, during the break, while I waited for you to come back, I went to check out the news. And the top thing on Reddit's news section, high school teacher accidentally fires gun in class.
On the one hand, that's really comical. On the other hand, and both feet,
it doesn't look like he hit anyone. But yeah.
Well, that's good.
Oh no! Correction. It didn't talk about any casualties. It says 3 students were injured. So yeah, there you go.
Hopefully injured means they were scared shitless and they fell out of their chair rather than being shot.
I saw the spent bullet as a picture on here, but then I read the caption: bullet fragments removed from student's neck. So I'm going to go no.
Okay.
So technically he's a school shooter. So what video games has he been playing?
Oh, god fucking damn it.
I could hear your spirit just breaking, and I'm sorry, but also not.
Let's just move on and talk about something else, and maybe I'll forget about it for 2 seconds and feel better.
Get the alcohol.
Yeah. Our next news topic for the day: Artifact. Valve makes a game again! Exclamation point.
Wait, there's an exclamation point there?
I added that.
Oh, all right.
I'm editorializing on the fly.
Well, you could do that, I guess. I'll just remember it later.
Artifact is this new card game.
Yeah, and we can't call it a CCG
releasing.
now with some details coming out about this. And the reason why we have this on here is that it's interesting. And I'm not sure if that's the backhanded compliment interesting or actually interesting, because really it depends on how things play out.
Yeah.
You could go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so at the top, they've stated that it's not going to be a free-to-play game, and it's also not going to be pay-to-win.
And that's going to be bullshit. I'm going bullshit on that one, because it's a card game, particularly with some of the things that they're talking about doing in this. Primarily, how they're... Well, technically, it's not a collectible card game. It's not a CCG. It's a TCG, a trading card game. They're bringing into play the Steam Marketplace. And you're going to be able to sell individual cards like Magic the Gathering. And yep. I could see this going hugely pay to win, especially since it has a buy-in already. So you're buying in and you're getting a base set. They still haven't divulged any information on the pay-in or any details. But I'm seeing some potential problems here. What about you?
Yeah, I am too. In most trading card games that I've played, because I've played a few. I played Magic a bit. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Pokemon. In general, if you're just playing with, whoever, it's going to be fine. But the big deterrence to it just being fine is you actually have to go somewhere and buy the card packs and then go through them and integrate them into your deck.
And it was a hassle to try to buy individual cards, unlike this.
Right, because the only way to buy individual cards really up until, I don't know, the last decade before they got really big on like Amazon and eBay was you had to go to like conventions or occasionally luck up on one. Or maybe find like a niche website that sold them. In the last 10 years, it's become much more prevalent to be able to buy individual cards on eBay and Amazon and stuff. But in the past, and still though, that's more of a hassle than this because you just spend however many cents or dollars and it's right there for you instead of having to buy it, wait for it, all that jazz. But so there's those two aspects that make this weird and risky. Because one, it's much easier to just buy card packs outright. However that's going to work. Does it say in here if it's going to be like single card? Well, not single cards, but like card packs with X number of cards? Or can you buy like sets?
I didn't see anything like that, but I imagine what they're going to do is like Magic the Gathering, particularly since they have one of the designers from Magic the Gathering in it. Working on the design. So I'd be shocked if it's not close to Magic the Gathering. So okay. So you've got those two aspects. It's easier to just outright buy card packs, which increases your chances to get statistically better cards. And it's easier to acquire specific individual powerful cards to round out your deck or hit whatever the current meta is. If they do what Magic does, which helps to mitigate this factor, is one, they regularly release new card packs, new card sets, and discontinue old sets. Well, they already said that they are not going to
season play.
They're not going to remove card sets. Okay. They already said that.
So something else they can do to mitigate it is if they have any sort of official tournament or ranked play in the game, they have seasons, which is what Magic does.
And what Hearthstone's technically started doing.
Yeah, which makes the cards in, essentially tournament and ranked play, it lessens the pool with which you can play with. You can also do, I forget what the term is for it, but basically random deck draws for tournament play. Yeah, drafting, thank you. You can do drafting, which helps mitigate that factor. So there's ways to combat it on that.
Well, this is also
be a tournament or ranked player.
Well, there's also the fact that this is a video game, so they can come in and make this essentially a living card game isn't the proper term for it because that's usually reserved for buying a card game and getting all the cards, but a more fluid experience with the cards and be able to adjust how cards are balanced. Granted, Hearthstone tried this for a bit, got a lot of outrage, and then just started the power creep.
Yeah, the big issue with Hearthstone that could be potentially mitigated with this or other card games is that Hearthstone would come in and make really big changes and then leave them for months and then replace those big changes with other big changes. The way to do that is very slowly tweak play.
Slowly tweak and also try not to bash the meta with a hammer. Because that's the other thing that Hearthstone was extremely guilty of is if there was one style that they saw as too overpowered, which with it being Hearthstone probably was because of how Hearthstone's built up. Aha, I win. No, I win. No, I win.
Yeah. Hearthstone used a very, there's the carrot and the stick analogy. Hearthstone used the stick. I think the better way to do it with this type of game is the carrot method. Just slow tweaks, and instead of making certain playstyles worse, make other playstyles more viable.
Well, something else that is a problem with Hearthstone, which we really can't compare the two too much outside of they both have cards, because Artifact is going more of a Magic route where it has different phases, sort of like Magic, where there's you're playing cards and then there's a combat phase and there's a second phase it looked like, and it's split across 3 different battlefields, so you're essentially playing 3 card games at once. Really, really weird. But
to me, I do like the idea.
It's interesting. Once again, not sure how I feel about it. We'll see which interesting it is closer to release. But Hearthstone is very expensive, and there's really no single player to try to help fuel this. And Artifact, if they have some sort of single player to help out with, the extreme price of cards, because Hearthstone, it was very tough to get the cards for quite a while. Even now that they've dialed it back some, it's still very expensive. And Hearthstone is probably the most expensive card game you could try to play outside of Magic the Gathering itself.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 expansions a year now, each one to get a full set, $250.
Yeah.
For a card game. A digital card game.
Sometimes more.
Depending on your luck.
Because if you get really bad rolls, you have to rely much more on the dust mechanic.
Yeah, which, because that's the thing that, because the market is in this game, isn't going to come into play because you could just sell off your extras.
Yeah, but there are definitely going to be a lot of common cards that aren't going to sell at all.
Yeah.
Or be worthless. So that'll be really frustrating if there's no mechanic to get rid of the cards that nobody wants, because they're literally the most common cards.
I imagine that there would have to be some sort of dev system. Granted, this is all speculation because we have a few gameplay videos and Gaben talking a little bit about the game. And no real specifics.
I think
it's something I want to try, but I'm not sure about buying into it.
I do want to try it. I might buy into it if I like it.
It depends on the price, because big time.
I want a good card game, but the biggest problem with these types of, these card games on PC is that there's just, I don't feel like there's a good way to do any of the mechanics outside of the actual card matches, battles, whatever you want to call them themselves. There's always an issue with something. Hearthstone has its issues. The Elder Scrolls one has its issues. The couple of other Hearthstone type clones I've played have their issues.
What was the problems? We talked about Hearthstone's just cost and how it really requires either a lot of snowballing or the I win mechanic. What's Elder Scrolls?
But honestly, they all come down, I think, to card acquisition and management.
I would say Fairy actually was probably the most fair I've played. But it
Yeah.
has a large single player component, but not a lot of multiplayer, so it's kind of the inverse.
I think the model that would work best on PC that I don't think I've ever seen, I don't know if any exists, there might be one I don't know of, but the living card game model, where you don't have to worry about that shit, and you just buy the entire expansion when it releases, is I think the best way to deal with this issue on PC. Because there's not... And, Artifact could change that with its using the Steam inventory system to create an actual secondary market for these cards might fix that problem. But since we haven't seen that before...
Yeah, we've never seen this, have we?
No. At best, you can use, like, Hearthstone's, Dust system or its equivalent. I've seen a couple of card games that will let you re-roll cards.
Yeah,
or
Faria does
combine
that.
cards to upgrade them.
Faria has the reroll system on opening a pack. So if you have all the packs, of course, it's the pretty standard model where all the packs have at least a rare, but you have an option to reroll one rare or higher card. And you get another card of that rarity. So if I reroll an epic, I'll get another epic. If I reroll legendary, I'll get another legendary. And it's not guaranteed that it'll be one that I don't have. So that you have that still chance element, but it's mitigated a little bit by having the option of a second roll of the dice.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's just hard. Maybe this might just be a maybe I'm old situation where I think that this is all and is just something that doesn't translate well to the digital space. But, I don't know. Maybe Artifacts actually using, the inventory system and community market will fix that problem. Are there any living card games that exist in digital media anywhere?
Not that I could think of off the top of my head. I hadn't really thought about it, though.
I'm just a big fan of that model anyways. I long ago outgrew the card collecting stage of my life, and I'm just like, I just want to buy a thing and have all of it.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I just wish that there was more single-player card games. We get a few, like Slay the Spire, but there's not that many still.
Yeah, single-player or cooperative card games.
Yeah, closest we have for cooperative is things like Two-Headed Ogre and Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I've got several cooperative card games, like in my board game and card game collection. Things that Katie and I enjoy playing together, or all playing together with our friends. I like cooperating a lot and stuff like that.
Huh. I didn't know that existed.
What?
Well, I've just typed in cooperative card game PC, and I came up with the Dresden Files cooperative card game on Steam.
Interesting. Let me just do a quick search.
Didn't know that existed.
Play Harry Dresden and his
friends. And I do like the Dresden Files. Granted, I'm probably about 6 novels behind now.
Well, we should add this to our wish list.
Yes, we should.
Well, first we should see if it's good later. Add it to our wish list. This would be a fun game for us to play as long as it's not a pile of shit. But it does seem to have mostly positive reviews, so that's positive.
Well, obviously. Well, I was just, that's literally the first thing that comes up in a Google search.
It's the first thing that comes up if you type cooperative into Steam as well. Dresden Files, cooperative.
Yeah, it looks like
game.
Dresden Files is just all over this, but I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Now, let's see. I want to see if there's a living card game on PC.
Okay. Looks like this game's lowest price is only $17, but it just came out, it looks like, last October. So maybe this Steam sale, or this coming summer sale, it'll be down 50% off or something like that.
Well, searching for living card game, Lord of the Rings living card game.
I'm familiar with that game, but is it on PC?
Yeah, it's on Steam. It hasn't released yet. It's coming into early access second quarter 2018.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. The Lord of the Rings living card game is a lot of fun. You work together to go on quests from Lord of the Rings, basically, and you're given a scenario, and some of them, they come from the various books.
So it does look like we're getting some more
stuff.
diversity in the card game market.
Available Q2 2018.
Add to wish list.
I will be all over that. Does it have... It doesn't say. It just says single player right now. Hopefully it's not just a local co-op thing, because this game is a lot of fun. I've played a couple of games with some friends that have it, and it's a blast.
Yeah. Well, I'm not huge in the card game market, so I'm just seeing if I can find anything else off the first page, but it doesn't look like it. But then again, Living Card Game popped up, so...
Yeah.
It looks like pretty much everything on this is directing me to Lord of the Rings. So, that's 2 for the list.
Sweet. Well, that makes me smile. Take all the smiles I can get.
Especially these days.
So, kind of, sort of moving on. This is a connected thing related to Artifact. But,
Gaben has been talking about making more games.
Indeed.
Which, there's really not a lot of details coming out about this. We have known that Valve has been working on some VR stuff in the background. Hammering away at it in the lab. But it sounds like he's working, the teams are working on non-VR stuff. Granted, I don't think we're going to get Half-Life 3.
I don't either. And that's okay. I would like to see some genuine new IP. Because all of their new IP has always been really successful and typically has done something innovative. So I'd love to see some new IP from them.
Something innovative. I would like to see them kind of branch out more from the first-person perspective. Because think about it. How many of their games have been first-person, either shooters or puzzlers?
All of them?
Dota.
Yeah, so most of them.
Ricochet. Remember? That's a Valve game.
No. Is it on Steam? I've got Steam pulled up right now.
I'm pretty sure I have the name of that correct.
Yep, developer Valve. Release date November 1st, 2000. Looks kind of like the disc game from Tron.
Yeah, it's probably... Well, I shouldn't say probably. It is their worst game. And the most forgotten, for good reason. But, yeah, they have very limited non-first person games, so I would love to see them to do something different. Granted, they have been working with that with their VR, which, okay, it's still first person, but it's something different. And Valve has all the money in the world and all the time in the world to really perfect these games. Granted, sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's bad, because if you go into the developer commentary and listen to them talk about Portal 2 and how they playtested it almost to death in some places. Not to say Portal 2 is a bad game, but there is such a thing as trying to streamline too much or trying to overdo too much. And yeah, I think Portal 2 in some aspects may have done that because they just, have all the time, all the money in the world. And until they announce something, people know Valve is working on something. But because of how Valve is structured, nobody knows exactly what. Or even the rumored projects may not come to fruition because of the really flat infrastructure that Valve has. Valve is just such a weird company. I really am concerned about when Gaben's gone.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Interesting good or interesting bad, we don't know.
Yeah.
But not a lot to talk about here, just because it was just a few comments about them starting up game production again, which is great. They really need to work more on the Source engine. They have the new version in Dota, but that's really all they've done with it, as far as I know.
Yeah, I haven't really followed its development. What's up with it?
It's pretty much just a refinement of Source. to allow for bigger maps and more assets in the game. Because Dota 2 is a very impressive game for its engine, to say it lightly. At least as far as I understand on a technical aspect. I could be completely wrong on that, of course. But then again, I reserve the right to be completely wrong, and I do it several times. Usually an episode. So, I guess this is more just a wait and see, but, it tied in enough with this that we thought it'd be prudent to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But hey, the Sleeping Giant's waking up. So we have at least one AAA developer, because I do consider Valve, if not AAA, damn close.
Yeah, they've definitely got the money and the resources to be it if they wanted to.
But we have a AAA developer that's waking up that hopefully will actually put out good games that aren't full of just industry bullshit. Then again, Valve is pretty much running the industry at this point.
At least on the PC side of things. Yeah. Ready to move on to our final news topic of the night?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Fortnite is coming to mobile and will support crossplay with PC and consoles. And to sort of clarify that potentially misleading headline, it's going to work the way that Rocket League does. PC gets to play with everybody. Well,
not quite. It's a little bit different, but PC gets to play with... all of them have their own lobby system, but you're able to invite people into other lobbies. That's how I've been able to read this. Where, let's say you are out and about and you have your phone with you, and I wanted to play Fortnite with you. I can invite you to the PC lobby, or you can invite me to the mobile lobby. And this seems like a very bad idea.
Yeah. First of all, Fortnite is a shooter, third person, basically Twitch action shooter.
Third person battle royale Twitch shooter.
Yes, and shooters always favor keyboard and mouse. Like, that's just
unless they hamper them to such a degree that it's unplayable.
Right. Then you've got your console people who will be playing on a controller. Not the best way to play shooters, but certainly better than playing on a phone. We were talking about this before, and the only way that this would seemingly be playable is if you use a Bluetooth controller with your phone, there's plenty of people who do, and that might be the intended audience. But what?
Some mobile games support mouse and keyboard.
I have never seen a mobile keyboard.
If you could set it up where the Android can accept a mouse.
I suppose you could do it, just via Bluetooth.
Or, mini USB hub to regular USB.
Yeah. That sounds way worse on a phone, though, than it does on anything else.
Well,
just 'cause...
tablet.
Yeah, I guess.
But, yeah, I'm just seeing the mobile version of this being just a mess with people having various control methods.
Yeah.
Granted, it is impressive that they can get this working on mobile.
Mobile phones are and tablets.
Well, I'm not talking about
days.
it working, but it being pretty much 1-to-1 with the PC version.
Oh yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah. It's the art style, man. Because Fortnite is really cartoony. You can hide a lot of, I guess, graphical downgrades if necessary to make it run at least a playable frame rate.
Yeah, drop some of the polygons.
Yeah. Which is not a bad thing. I'm not, downing it. That could have come across as, a negative. I'll take art style any day over trying to produce something that looks, photorealistic.
Well, you don't need to see the sweat coming off the character's ass at 3 frames a second.
I don't need to see that at 3F. So I'm not surprised. Phones and tablets, modern phones and tablets released in the last couple of years, especially, have gotten very, very powerful. Even your budget type phones have gotten pretty powerful just due to the CPUs, the mobile, being able to squeeze more performance out of a smaller amount of battery power. energy drains if you games on a phone, but you know, they're getting on up there comparable to a lot of just general like mobile chipsets that you find in like laptops and things. So I'm not surprised that they can get it running, but I don't know why anyone would want to play this, even if you're playing it with a controller or using, you know, mouse and keyboard. If your device supports it, I just don't know why you'd want to play a game like this on a tiny screen.
Well,
even
I was
like
thinking,
a tablet screen is like 9 inches.
I was thinking a pretty good sized tablet probably wouldn't be that bad. I mean, for out and about. I mean, that's the thing, is that if you're somewhere where you have a lunch break or something, you know, you're at work, you have a lunch break for 30 minutes. That's probably enough time to do a match of Fortnite.
I think Fortnite matches are 10 to 15 minutes. They're much shorter than PUBG.
I was including, actually eating your damn lunch. But
I'll eat when I'm dead.
Really could have fooled me.
But
fat people jokes. But I can see a bit of a market for it, but the fact that they have crossplay is just a head scratcher for me, because you're inviting people with a lot faster and a lot better aim into your games, or you're bringing in an albatross by having someone that is at best using a Bluetooth controller, maybe if the game supports it, a mouse and keyboard on a tablet. It does look like it runs fairly well, but we haven't seen full performance breakdowns of this game yet. So if it runs at 30, that is a bit of a hit. But
not necessarily, just because the server tick rate is more important in these games than your actual frame rate. I mean, not that it doesn't matter. I'd much rather play it at 60 than 30, but the server tick rate for Fortnite is, I believe, somewhere around 20-something hertz.
Well, it also increases as the server gets emptied.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's more linear as the battle gets more intense. The tick rate goes up, unlike PUBG, where according to Battle Nonsense, it's all over the fucking place.
Yeah,
at least when he tested it, 2 or 3 months ago now.
No, he tested it a second time.
Oh, he did?
After they made some pretty big changes to it, and it's still all over the place, but it's like slightly better.
Yeah, which that's a really good channel, by the way.
Yeah.
I definitely see the market for it, but it's still really up in the air. And they talked about it coming to iOS first, with Android release coming later. But Fortnite's turned itself around big time. It is amazing, just the turnaround of this game, because when it released, there was really a lot of not sure what to do with this, because it was mostly a survival game. It's the DayZ thing going all over again, where at first it was a survival game, then it morphed into something else. Which H1Z1, by the way, has gone free to play after a week of being launched out of early access as a paid game, and boy, people were pissed about that. But I think the player count went through the roof, at least for a short time.
I saw an ad for it somewhere, and at first I thought it was a new expansion for GTA 5, because it looks like GTA 5.
They're doing some sort of automotive battle royale, which is interesting. Let's see. I'm going to H1Z1's Steam chart. Wow. Okay, so it went from about 9,000, which is respectable. That's actually fairly good. Graded battle royale, that's worse because it's 100 players. Which I really don't think a battle royale needs to be 100 players all the time. It jumps up to 41,000, then it's come back down to 28,000. So it's lost about half. And this is day average.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how that handles, but interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's no reason for them not to do crossplay, and I'm sure there is a small.
Well, with this,
well, I don't know. I'm assuming a small percentage of the mobile market that they'll grab that.
Well, let's put it this way.
They didn't have
while
before.
I was waiting on you to show up today, I was poking around the Google Play Store, like I do every so often, trying to find something that is an absolute shit. And in the top 20 for me, I saw a cheat for Fortnite. It's not even out yet, but it's someone advertising some sort of cheat program that's just ads. At least it showed up for a short time. I'm not sure if it's still there, but the fact that that's there, there is something going on.
Yeah.
I think it was in top 3 games. I'm trying to find it real quick because I saw it and thought, oh, this game isn't even out yet. This is obviously some sort of scam. But the fact that it's so popular, the Battle Royale genre is just absurd how popular and how quickly it's blown up.
Yeah. Maybe I'm old.
It's just... it has to be a bubble that bursts at some point, though. It just can't keep going. Especially...
Well, I mean, all of these exploding genres are at some point.
Well, I was going to say, especially with how the matches are, 4 times the size of a regular shooter these days? 4 or 5 times?
Yeah. Most regular shooters are anywhere between 8 and 16.
Yeah, which do you occasionally get some of them that go up to 64? But that's a
Battlefront
a rarity.
2 was, 25? Or 20? I guess it'd be 20.
At least with that attitude.
So, yeah. I don't know what Battlefield goes to. It's probably the same, like the 16 to 24 range. I might be wrong, though. I'm not a Battlefield player. Never really have been.
But this is more of a curiosity, and I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like I said, really, there's no reason for them not to do this. I just don't understand who would want to play the game that way. But I'm sure there are people who do. And, I don't exactly fit into that subset being, a hardcore PC gamer who really cares about performance over just about anything else.
Well, I think it would have been more interesting, and no, this isn't a rag on the Battle Royale genre or Fortnite in particular. If it wasn't Fortnite, but if it was another game, like a turn-based strategy or something like that, that where you play doesn't really matter, because they talked about in the announcement, we believe this is the future of games. The same game on all platforms, console quality, graphics in action, play when you want, where you want. For a game that isn't as action-packed, that is a bit slower, I think it would be make a lot more sense to be on mobile.
Yeah. I've played, they've existed. I don't know if there's any out now, but there was one, it was a free-to-play, turn-based sort of strategy-type game that released initially on mobile, and then it came to Steam, and you could play either on the PC or on your mobile device, and you could, take turns, not like play by email, but like, you'd take your turn, and then the game would wait until the other person could pick up their turn and play. So, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, Frozen Synapse did it on mobile and PC, where it was an not asymmetric, but simultaneous turn system, where both players commit their turn, and then it plays out, and then they submit their next turn. And that works really well. And it works exceptionally well on mobile, because you may see the notification, then have a 5-minute break, set up your turn, and be done with it.
Yeah.
Granted, we're coming into really two platforms that are of two opposite ends of the spectrum, where mobile really thrives when it's very short bursts of gameplay, very short interactions with the game. And a lot of the games are built around that, while PC is the opposite end, where hours long experiences, games 10 hours of minimum game time.
Yeah.
And a lot less grind, a lot less advertising bullshit, a lot less loot boxes, at least for the time being. As a whole for the industry, not just the AAA, I should say. So it's two conflicting styles of game and two conflicting platforms of game trying to come together into this glorious, glorious mess.
Yeah, I do. We've said this before. Well, I've said this before. I don't remember what you said, but I do think that in the future, something like 2 or 3 decades, there will be this large shift for most of like your general population, where that there will be a device, a phone, a tablet, or some future device that, you know, we can't conceive of because it's a future device that does do everything, and that's for the general consumer. And then you have your hardcore, you know, hobbyist, enthusiast level that might have specific hardware, but that's going to become a lot more niche. I mean, I think PC gaming is still a little more niche than console gaming, but I mean, PC gaming is a massive market, so I don't really think that it qualifies as a niche market. But in 20 or 30 years, when the type of whatever the technology turns out to be that can fill that gap for 80-90% of the population exists.
Something like cloud computing, remote gaming.
Yeah. Then we'll see that be the solution for that huge chunk of the population. And most things will be about the software, about the game itself. And it doesn't really matter where you play it. You know, you go home, your device, whatever it is, connects to your
turn
TV,
on the box.
Boom, you can play it on the big screen. Yeah, you turn on the box, it connects to the TV, you play it there. Or you're out and about, you just play it directly off the box. And then, you know, the equivalent of PC gaming will be for the enthusiast who wants something more that is more capable or whatever to play the niche type of games or whatever. So I think they're right, but I don't think that that's in the time frame that they probably think it will be.
Particularly with the infrastructure of the U.S. And not just ragging on the stupidity of the FCC, but also the geography of the United States, where there has to be a huge shift from rural to urban. It's starting to happen, but it hasn't happened to the degree that it needs to for this thing to really work out as a consumer device. It can work in smaller countries with a lot higher density, but
population density.
Population density, but just not here just yet. Unless you want to spend a ton on your infrastructure, and then you're just eating up so much profits that it's not even worthwhile.
Yeah.
Unless we have like Elon Musk do it.
Yeah. I think another technology that we'll see become a lot more viable in the future will be satellite-based internet services. I know they exist now, but they have huge latencies, and they're extremely expensive.
Speaking of Elon Musk, isn't he planning on doing that?
Yeah, he is. Worldwide, I forget what he calls it, but like
Skynet.
Blanket Net or something.
We'll call it Skynet. Nothing will go wrong.
But I think in the future, that will become less of an issue. I've seen some people speculate that it will have to do with advancements in laser, what's it called? Laser communication technology or something like that, where basically, you know, you're communicating everything via laser beams pointed at receiver dishes, which, you know, they're communicating at the speed of light. So it doesn't matter. You know, you're not relying on radio waves or anything, which does, while being extremely fast, they do have a travel time.
Well, aren't radio waves also the speed of light? You're talking more about less interruption with weather coverage because the laser can punch through, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, radio waves do travel at or very near the speed of light. I can't remember.
Well, radio waves are a form of light, just a different spectrum.
But they're much more susceptible to degradation, and
interference.
They take longer to be transceived, basically. So there's latency on the processing end, whereas a laser can do that much faster. And you can already do it to a certain extent. I've seen office buildings that use laser transmitters to extend their range to another building without having to put in essentially ground lines. And the communication is, comparable in speed to wired infrastructure. You just have to go out and turn the dish every once in a while when a bird whacks it.
Or it gets fried. It gets fried whenever it goes between the beam.
Yeah. But, that's just one sort of speculation, like future tech thing I've seen. There's different radio frequencies, and as the technology to process essentially radio waves increase, gets better, the links. So there's a whole bunch of ways that they're looking at doing it, but I think that's going to be a huge thing in the future. Because, the United States and a lot of other countries have got an infrastructure problem that would cost so much money to fix. I mean, we want it to happen, and I really rag on companies and even the government for not being willing to do this. But also, it's really fucking expensive to lay thousands, tens of thousands of miles worth of cable, because you have to go everywhere if you're going to do it. You can't just do an upgrade to the backbone infrastructure, because they've already done that, and it helps a little bit, but it's not enough to get everyone those speeds.
Well, also the problem is just a cost benefit analysis. You have to sell it to the politicians.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about how the politicians are shifting more and more anti-science and more just gut feelings.
Yeah.
And thoughts and prayers, of course. I must hear the Twitch as well.
I wonder how long it's going to take us until we get, someone who seriously, on a big national stage, campaigns as, an internet candidate. I've seen him in, some smaller local elections. Someone runs as an independent candidate, I'm an internet candidate, and I'm going to deal with issues revolving around the internet. Net neutrality.
Well, I thought you were going to say have a meme as a candidate, because we already had that.
No, I'm not talking about that. I know who you're talking about. But I wonder how long before we're going to have, a big mainstream candidate say, I'm an internet candidate. Or I'm
from the internet, I'm here to help.
Say it as maybe as a tech-based candidate instead. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Although I guess... what's his face? Facebook man. Zuckerberg has talked about running, and most people think that's a bad idea.
Well, better than Oprah, at least.
Yeah. Probably. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. I haven't done enough research to form an educated opinion.
Me either, but Oprah is also pretty anti-science.
Yeah, she is.
So...
although she'd give everybody a free car.
And bees.
Oh.
We ended up talking on this a lot longer than I expected.
Indeed, we did. We're going to start running up against our new time barrier soon, so we should probably move on.
Yeah, just mosey.
Yep, mosey on over to the weekly community corner, where we have, one tweet and a question this week?
Yeah, we had a tweet and then a question from the list, which I'm going to populate with my old questions of the week. So we'll have some, I shouldn't say interesting choices, more random choices. How about that?
That's fine.
So the... don't tell me I didn't save, so I'm going to have to bring up TweetDeck. Because it didn't say my old note. Whoops, sorry about that. It was Kyle, though. Kyle, good news. Crash is coming back. And the Angry Pants letter. Bad news. That shit takes forever and a day to record and edit, and will be a next week thing. Well, I guess we'll see in 7 days.
Yeah.
But hey, our Kerbal's coming back.
Woohoo! Speaking of Kerbal, I hope that somebody talks about the new, the history?
Making history
update to KSP.
Yeah, they also released a free patch that had some of the things that they were talking about being part of the expansion in it, which was a little surprising.
Yeah, I saw the patch, but I didn't see what was in it.
Well, the main thing was parachutes.
New parachutes?
No, parachutes on the Kerbals.
Oh, okay.
They have to be level 3 or higher, which is pretty much coming back from the moon. Then they get issued a parachute.
You have to prove yourself responsible before you get a parachute.
No. They don't prove themselves responsible. They prove themselves as non-expendable. We can't afford to lose you now. And the other thing was a built-in texture switcher. So you could swap looks of parts in the base game.
Doesn't really compel me to check out KSP right now, but maybe.
And of course, broke all the mods.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, there's that. Our question. Are we still going to do the same question?
Yeah, we can.
Okie dokie. We received a question from Happy Al. And it says, Jared mentioned baking a lot last time, which would have been
ages ago.
Weeks, if not months ago now. But here we are. What are some of your favorite foods to make and why? The answer to that question is yes. And because I love food.
Pretty much the same. I actually really loved... well, I don't do it as much anymore just because of mobility issues and it being a pain to be on my feet long enough. But I used to love to bake and make cookies and bread.
I thoroughly despise making bread. I don't know why. It's not hard, especially with a bread maker.
Well, I didn't have a bread maker. I was doing it by hand. It's a good way to work out aggression. Maybe after reading political news, you should go make a loaf of bread. You get to go make it the old-fashioned way. You get to go punch some dough. Well, we'll just add some orange dye to it, or you can just make pretzels with all the salt. Which I have made pretzels before and made bagels before.
I've never.
It's not that hard. It's a bit time consuming because you have to do a bit of a soak on the proof dough. But they turned out fairly well. Granted, they were a little ugly because it was the first time making them, so I hadn't refined the process. But they tasted perfectly fine.
I've never made pretzels. I've got some pretzel. It's like a pretzel dough making kit that I got for Christmas.
Well, pretzels and bagels are the same basic idea where they're soaked in a soda water. Okay. So it's the same basic idea, only pretzels are made a little different on the dough if memory serves correctly. Granted, it's been a long time since I've done it. And of course they have salt.
Right.
And maybe cheese, depending on how fancy you make your pretzels.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't put cheese on a pretzel.
No, in the pretzel.
That's just me with my issues. Oh, in them? Yeah, definitely not. Not because I wouldn't like it, but because it would hurt me.
Well, sometimes you need to get hurt a little bit. Sometimes you've been a naughty boy and you need to be hurt.
When it comes to cooking, I prefer to just wing it. I'm not a recipe person. I can follow a recipe if there's something that wants to be. 99% of the time, whenever I want to cook something, I'll walk into the pantry and look in the freezer and be like, what meat do we have today for me to thaw and make something out of? And I'll just dream up meals on the fly. And I'm not a chef by any means, but I'm a pretty damn good cook. Both of my parents cooked a lot and taught me a lot of stuff about cooking and sort of flavor combinations and some of the, honestly, I've talked in the past before about my family issues. Some of the only really positive memories I have from being a kid is whenever we would go to cook something in the kitchen and they would just make stuff up and be like, well, this goes with this and that goes with that. And, unless you're baking, you don't really have to worry about measuring stuff too much. And you can usually always get away with adding a little bit of this for some added flavor or, whatever you're cooking. So cooking to me is very fun and stress relieving and sort of like an art. There are some things that I do really...
Yeah, I've always heard the term that cooking is a science, but baking is an art.
Yeah. I feel like it's the other way. I don't know. They're both kind of art and kind of science. Because, cooking is chemical reactions, heat and
these are their Alton Brown
different things combine. But there are some things that I do really enjoy making. For example, an omelet. Just the perfect omelet with the perfect fold and flip and distribution of whatever it is that you're putting in it, and the right amount of cheese on it. Making a perfect omelet is something that I really enjoy doing and actually put a lot of time and effort into. Also, grilling things. I have got some really interesting methods for grilling things that can produce some amazing flavors, especially chicken and steaks. For example, one thing that I just dreamed up one day was taking coconut oil.
Well, you've lost me already.
When you buy coconut oil, it comes as like a solid or a cream. I don't know exactly what you want to call it. It's sort of like butter, I guess.
I don't know. I never bought it. I despise.
When you melt it, it's when it becomes
coconut.
I really like it. I hate everything coconut except coconut oil. Coconut oil is delicious to cook with. It does add a bit of a sweet taste to a lot of things if you overdo it, so you have to be careful with that. But one of the things that I do for grilling sometimes is take some coconut oil and melt it in the microwave. And then get whatever it is that I'm going to be grilling. I typically do this with steaks because steaks usually come in a thinner cut so that you can sear them really quickly on the outside but keep the inside medium rare-ish depending on your personal preference. So they're thin enough and you can get away with doing this. You melt your coconut oil, you put it in like a Tupperware container, and you put your steak inside of that, and you put whatever you're going to coat it with. I use a lot of dry rubs as opposed to like marinades and stuff. So whatever it is.
We get it. You like to rub your meat.
Oh, yeah. So whatever it is that I'm coating the steak with, I put it in it. And then you put that in the freezer. And you leave it for, a couple hours. Typically, I like prep it the day before. Put it in the freezer overnight. Get it out a couple of 3 hours ahead of time. So that the steak inside will start to thaw. And the coconut oil will stay solid because it's reformed, and then you grill it that way. And you get this really even coating of oil and ingredients on the top, and it grills. The bottom will just melt away and go into your grill, and you'll get some flame up and some little bit of sear. You have to be careful not to char it though if you leave it in the same place because it is oil and it'll catch your grill on fire. But everything grills from the top down to the bottom as the coconut oil melts. Your flavors get in, and you flip it. You get a bit of an uneven cook in the middle because you want to keep your seasoning on top for as long as possible, and then you flip it and sear the other side and then pull it off. So you do get a little bit of an uneven cook in the middle, but god damn, is that some good meat. You can get a lot of really good flavors mixed in there.
Well, I think we found the title for the episode. Jared talks about his meat.
I'm not going to put a swear in the title, but goddamn, that's some good meat would be an excellent title. I'll just go with that's some good meat. I'm going to go add that.
Jared
right
likes
now.
to rub his meat. Also, something else I like to make that's very simple is waffles.
I cannot make a good waffle to save my life.
Well, I have a Belgian waffle maker. Yeah, the fancy type that just flips around. And
yeah,
I found a recipe and I've kind of modified it over time. Basically, how I work is I start off with a recipe and make it as stated the first time. And then I start to slowly change it. And this waffle recipe I have, the batter comes out pretty thick. I mean, just it doesn't even flow, but it works perfectly for my waffle maker because of how it comes together. Yep. And it makes some really crunchy on the outside, but very soft in the middle because of all the leavening of all the I use self-rising flour just as a bit of a cheat. I mean, the only difference between self-rising and all-purpose is that it has the leavening agent and the salt built into it immediately. Granted, you can't really change the ratio, so it's less versatile. And if you need something that doesn't need the baking powder, then you're kind of screwed on that front. And also, my waffles are loaded with butter. and sugar, so they crisp up really nicely, and they're buttery, and you don't even need to put butter on them. But I'm sure you would.
Yeah, actually, probably not.
Well, I also
not me. Katie
I also
would.
use the same recipe for my pancakes, and because the batter's so thick, you have to kind of spread it out. It doesn't come out into a pancake shape naturally, unless you like your pancakes kind of oblong with a big bulge in the middle. But it makes some highly thick pancakes just because of how thick the batter is.
Yeah. I prefer thin and crispy pancakes.
See, I like mine light and fluffy.
I was really hoping you were going to say I like mine thick.
Extra thick.
Yeah, Katie's the waffle maker in our house. She can make perfect, crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside waffles every time, and I just can't.
Well, see, part of mine is the waffle maker itself because, it's a rather nice waffle maker.
Yeah. Something else that I really enjoy making the perfect version of is fried rice. Asian style fried rice. I can make fried rice as good as Chinese restaurants.
Well, see, I'm limited on my Asian stuff here. I have a friend that grew up in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, you should try this, because we were talking about different recipes, and I wanted something kind of easy and quick to make because of my limited time on my feet. And I said, you're way overestimating the amount of Asian stuff I have available. She said, well, it's available in all supermarkets. I sent her a picture of the Asian section of the market I go to. The one that's within hobbling distance of me. And I'm able to get the entire section in one vertical photo on my cell phone. And she said, that's not the Asian section. That's just a bunch of noodles and salsas. I said, welcome to my choice.
Yeah.
There was Pocky, though. So I got that going for me.
We've got a surprisingly high number of Asian cultures in the area, mostly Chinese, but there's also Vietnamese and Japanese and some others in our area. So, I mean, there's...
Well, a lot of the major families here are Italian. So there's a slant towards Italian stuff in the supermarket as a result.
Yeah. The secret to making good fried rice, you got to get your technique right, get your cooking times right, because fried rice is really dependent on your cooking time. The two most important things, get good rice, something like jasmine white rice, and use sesame oil. Other oil doesn't cut it. I mean, you can make fried rice with other oil, but sesame oil is where it's at to get the flavor right. Also, don't add your soy sauce until like the last minute or two of cooking. Soy sauce burns really easily, and it tastes wrong if you put it in. Those are
which I imagine that's probably the problem with a lot of fried rice I eat.
Yeah.
I've never tried making fried rice myself.
Yeah, fried rice is really easy. You can obviously add things to it, but you want to do it more like at the end if you're going to add stuff to fried rice, except for egg. Because you want to cook your egg with your fried rice so it gets all that flavor. But anything else that you want to add to fried rice, add it at the end, like when you add your soy sauce. Or even after the fact.
Well, I'm thoroughly hungry, so shall we move along?
Yeah, we can go ahead and move on. Do a quick community corner, and then I have to go poke the bear and get a snack.
Yeah, you mean Discovery Queue.
As well. Yeah, what did
I
I
say? Community corner. I was about to say,
Whoops.
kind of through that, but if you wish to contribute to the community corner, you can email us vglpodcast@gmail.com or tweet us VGLpodcast on the Twitter. See, I remembered it this time.
Indeed.
We usually just move so swiftly along. By the time I remember it, we're already into the music. Speaking of which,
yeah, go for the theme song.
Which I got something immediately that's interesting.
I did too. Oh yeah.
I got Deep Rock Galactic.
I also got Deep Rock Galactic.
Well, I got it first.
That's fine.
A dwarven mining game. I mean, this is probably right up your alley, but I'm stealing it. It's mine.
Yep.
It looks very interesting. Low poly survival shooter from the looks of it.
Yeah.
But that is definitely worthwhile with 1 to 4 player co-op. So, Left 4 Dead aspects.
$25 for the game. So it's a budget title. Right off the bat.
It looks like they're estimating a 1 to 2
range.
year development. So this is going to be cooking for a while. This came out recently.
And this is just, February 28th, so 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they're adding quite a bit to this. More game modes, more varied cave systems. I'm looking forward to seeing where that development goes.
Yep. The first time that goes on sale for any amount, I will be purchasing a copy. And if the amount is low enough, I'll purchase 2 copies, and you can have one.
And then immediately I get a lot of garbage. I'm getting a lot of Tycoon games. Which, is it just me, or has Tycoon become almost a dirty word in a video game title?
I don't feel that way.
It usually means very... what would the best way to say this is? A very light on the management side of things. And more of almost clicker-esque.
Yeah, the clicker-esque thing is annoying.
So I got another one, Demolish and Build. 2018. So I guess there was one before this. But pretty much just building destruction game. I'm good with this. It's interesting. I'm not sure how good it is. It has just 61 reviews, so that doesn't really mean a lot. And there's a lot of people saying that's very laggy. But hey, something different, right?
Yeah, it looks alright. I got one, Farm Together. This looks like a very, at least in terms of its art style, it's very cartoony, very relaxed, and it even says it's a relaxing farm experience. But it's a cooperative farming game.
And because I've been playing City Skylines recently, I got Cities in Motion 1 and 2.
I think I own both of those games. They're not all that great.
Yeah.
2 is alright. 1 is very flawed.
But here, I'm not going to put those on the list, but here is something interesting. This is multiplayer online co-op. So, Heroes of Hammerwatch. A top-down-esque roguelite adventure game. This is from the developers of Hammerwatch. Which, if you don't remember that or have heard of it, it was a mouse-driven fighting game.
I don't remember that.
Oh, sorry. It was a mouse-driven 2D fighting game where you... No, never mind. I'm thinking of a different one. Hammerwatch was another exploration game. I was thinking of something different then, because there was another game that has a very similar name. That was, you were flying blimps, and you had these giant hammers. And you were trying to kill the other blimp, and you controlled it with your mouse. Not one-to-one, of course, but this is interesting. We don't see a lot of roguelites, particularly the dungeon crawly type, with full multiplayer. Which Hammerwatch did have it, but seeing another one is interesting. And this is pretty much outside of it lacking the turn-based combat is Rogue, from what I can tell. And I got one more at Thermont. I have 2 years.
Soul Worker.
Oh, I skipped over that.
Free-to-play anime action MMO. I'm not sure if this would be up my alley, depending on how well it handles the action that comes before the MMO. But I'm always up for to check out a new MMO. I honestly will probably play that this week. I hit play game, so it started stalling, and then I paused the install. So I'll probably be reporting on this next week. But Yeah, it looks all right.
Well, I got Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2. A 2D run and gun game from the looks of it. It actually doesn't look too bad. It's definitely not high fidelity. Looks more in the budget range of things, and the graphics. I was taking a look over at the other one. It doesn't look, like I said, it doesn't look too bad. I've never heard of this game, but it's rated fairly well overall. Both of them.
What is it? Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2.
Yeah. But yeah, run and gun action. Trying to find anything really more on this, but it's just, not a... the game... Well, sorry, that's the... Here's the premise of the first one. The game tells the story of Vinnie Cannoli and his mob family, set in the fictional thug town circa 1925, the height of Prohibition. Beneath the city overrun by zombies, there's a dark story of conspiracy and betrayal. Interesting. And it has 4-player local co-op, at least the first one. I'm not sure if the second one went online or not. It doesn't really... it says online co-op, so looks like they added that. So definitely worth looking at least on sale, I think.
So I got another one. This is another MMO. Project Gorgon. It's got a buy-in, so I assume that it's got some sort of microtransaction market. Maybe no loot boxes, I don't know. I don't see that. But it says unique experience, blah, 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 blah,
What do you
blah,
trigger
to
play to trigger all these MMOs?
I don't know. I haven't played an MMO in a while. But going through the whatever features, let's see. Shopkeepers keep inventory from other players to encourage the use of shopkeepers more, especially in new player areas. If you're experiencing an elemental damage like being on fire, you can jump into a lake to put it out. You can inscribe messages into items, write books, or leave notes for other players in the world. And a couple...
Looks like it's more of a sandbox than anything else.
Content. Player housing that's not instanced, so if there's no... Depending on how big the PvP versus PvE is in this, it could... How is this supposed to be in early access? And this just released today, well, I guess yesterday now.
It says the price will
access.
also increase after it leaves early access. And this is not a cheap game.
No, there's $30 right now for
its,
its like launch
40
sale.
After it leaves, so it's going to be full price AAA pricing, I should say. Most likely.
I'm gonna do some more research. I'm really tempted to buy into this. Start playing. I'll see if I can get a review key first, and then do a little research otherwise. But this looks like something that I would really enjoy if these systems even work half as well as they're outlining them here on the store page.
What's that? You just found your replacement to Eve?
Maybe. I don't know.
Depends
we'll see.
on how the mining system is, right?
Yeah, it depends on how good the mining is. No, I'll do some research into this week. Very quickly, let's see if it's on Keymailer. Oh, good. Request key. I'll give it about a week. When does it go off its launch sale? It goes off on March 19th, which is next Monday. So maybe I'll give it till Sunday to see. But yeah, I'm thoroughly interested in the idea
of a sandbox,
concept for this
a sandbox MMO.
Yeah, I've played a couple,
Eve.
and but I've played a couple others besides just Eve, and I really enjoy the large amounts of player freedom and things like that. But the ones that I've played before, you typically die because it's in the past has been a much more difficult market to get into, but MMOs have gone through a big lull, and we've seen a few new ones recently being released, so maybe this one might find a cult following. And if they do some sort of, even though it would be terrible for any sort of PvP combat, if they did a peer-to-peer system as opposed to having servers, it would at least be playable without a big population, because everyone's on for everybody. I don't know. gonna do some research. I'm gonna stop talking about this and do some research later.
And that's it for the discovery queue, unless you really wanted to do another one, but I think we're good on this.
Shit. Like a dummy, I closed that tab. That's my discovery queue. I have 2 games left. I got Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. As in also.
It doesn't look too bad.
And junk. So yeah, that's my queue done. Cool. Decent queue this
once
week.
I got past I got a bunch of Tycoon and a bunch of City Builders. Which I understand the City Builders because, City Skylines. And having to sit, trying to figure out traffic.
I don't know what I've played to trigger... Oh, maybe Torchlight.
Maybe.
Torchlight's not really an MMO, but...
Online multiplayer. Online multiplayer and fantasy-based.
Let's see what tags it's got listed. Online co-op, online...
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of tags, actually.
No.
But Gorgon has early access, obviously. Sexual content, so you're all over that.
I didn't even notice that one. Sweet. That's just a bonus.
Massively, I think we just determined your class. Whore.
Yeah.
Man-slut. With pink hair. Massively multiplayer, indie, violent, and RPG. They don't have a lot of tags just yet.
Well, yeah, but it just released, so... It's been a very long time since I've actually started playing a game at the beginning of its early access period.
Yeah, I think the last one not counting ones that I did for not Discovery Queue, Sunday Sampler that I played early on. I would say probably Besiege is the one that I've done the most as it's updated throughout early access without being prompted it's like, here, try our game.
Yeah.
Which, hey, sometimes the ones I try, that I'm prompted are really good. Sometimes they suck. And sometimes they're a real surprise, like Clone Drone in the Danger Zone. That's probably the biggest surprise I had so far in the Sunday Sampler on the early access front. Because I went with that really expecting to hate it.
I'm really sad.
What?
I just clicked over to Reddit. Stephen Hawking has passed away at 76 years old.
Wow.
Just happened 42 minutes ago was when this was put up. So I guess he died today.
Yeah, well.
Or yesterday.
That depends on time zones.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, he lived a lot longer than anyone really had with... now I'm blanking on what he had. But I know that the expected lifespan for... his disease was just a few years.
I think he had ALS.
What
ALS stands for.
I couldn't recall exactly what it was, and I didn't want to make a guess,
Amyotrophic lateral progressive degeneration of the motor neurons of the central nervous system, leading to wasting away of the muscles, and also called Lou Gehrig's disease.
But yeah, he survived a lot longer than I think really anyone would expect with ALS, because it's it's terminal illness.
Yeah.
So, side note at the end of the Discovery Queue. Hopefully you cut the music by now, because we don't need that music under this.
Okie dokie. Well, let's move on from that to the part of the podcast where I go first and tell you all about my things. I have a YouTube channel. On the YouTubes, you can find it by searching for Gaming Psychologist. This week we have Kerbalcast stuff. The next batch or few Kerbalcast archive shows. Obviously, we'll have the podcast. And that's about it for right now. I'm actually making a push over on Twitch to do some things, trying out some new Twitch features. That's twitch.tv/jarthur4707. I'm going to start putting up the podcast on Twitch. They have a relatively new feature called Premiere, which allows you to schedule a video and run it live. Obviously, the podcast will still be pre-recorded, but I just did one without saying anything or posting anything anywhere, and it got 11 views. Some of them were quick in and out, but it had 5 viewers that stayed for an average of, I think it was like 40 something minutes.
Hopefully you have a link to the actual podcast and all that.
I will. I didn't for that first one. I just was playing around with it, learning how to use it, and I was like,
maybe put a QR code or something.
Yeah, I'll do something like that.
Or just be lazy and I have to do it.
But on top of that, I plan on putting some of my other YouTube content on Twitch using the Premiere system and see how it does. Starting with some older content just to like test and gauge where things are going to go. On top of that, I also think that sort of a combination of YouTube fucking sucks, and I had never had any illusions about being like a gigantic YouTuber, but there was always a little bit of growth, a chance to earn a little something on the side for what I did, and with YouTube's constant moving the goalposts, that really isn't possible for me right now. Maybe if I really dedicated a lot more time and energy to it, but I want it to be more of a hobby thing with hobby level time put in and growth and that sort of stuff. So I think I'm going to try my hand at a little bit more Twitch streaming in the near future. I'm doing some testing.
So are you going to have the boot camp?
Some stuff out. Maybe. I'll push my man tits out there. But I'm going to do a little bit of testing and trial with some different games, but sort of like a hobbyist level variety streamer. I've done a couple of extra streams the last couple of weeks anyways, like with Kyle and some random stuff, so just something that I want to try. I want to see if anything can come of it. I'm really close to being not Twitch partner, but the level below that one, Twitch affiliate. I think I just need to get a higher average viewer count, and then I've hit the Twitch affiliate status, which is like their first level of like monetization and increased tools and all. I've also been talking to my friend David from over at Left Stick Down about maybe doing like some sort of like streaming stuff or from him, because he does a lot of particularly with, I believe, Brawlhalla. So yeah, in the next couple of weeks, I don't have anything planned yet, but it's very important that I put together a schedule, otherwise I won't stick to this. So I'm still kind of in the testing phase, but in the next couple of weeks, as long as everything goes according to plan, and nothing crazy happens in my life, I'm not ruling that out at this point, plan to see me on Twitch a bit more, doing some more. One of the things that I haven't quite decided on yet is whether to run completely solo or to drop into the Discord channel and allow chat and things like that directly that way.
I think you shouldn't do the full chat, because that typically gets very messy if you get more than a few people.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I don't have anything put together yet, but I was going to talk to you, Rage, about maybe doing something, and to you, Kyle.
A little something special.
Ghost Shark. A little something. But to you also, Kyle and Ghost, because you two have done Twitch. And I don't have any idea what that's going to be yet. Like I said, I've got to sit down and plan some of this stuff out. But it's coming. And I really hope that it turns out pretty well. I also don't expect to become a massive top-tier level Twitch streamer, but, it would be nice to...
Well, I don't think you're annoying enough. I mean, you can be annoying at times, but I don't think you're at that level of annoying.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I love you, too.
You have to admit that there is a certain personality for the top-level, both YouTuber and streamer.
Yeah. At the very least, I'd like to be able to grow our podcasting community, because regardless... when everything else falls apart, the podcast is still like my top priority, and everything.
Mostly because I'm on your ass about it.
Well, I mean, the podcast is the most important thing to me, anyways, and so everything I do, I try to channel back towards the podcast. So at the very least, have it be an advertising sort of trickle to get people headed towards the podcast. But we'll see. I just want to put this out there so that people can start checking out my Twitch channel a little bit more, and see if that's something that you guys want to participate in. I skipped over the Twitter because I went to the Twitch, so let me go back to my Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at JMA4707. This week in particular, it was very political and very angry political.
I blame myself somewhat.
There's always at least a trickle of politics, but yeah, I went off the deep end yesterday, at least of recording, so
I have to
if you want to go see me explode...
That was glorious. I wasn't sure. I was tempted to put an applauding gif, but I didn't want to set you off again.
Yeah, if you want to see me explode on Twitter, head on over there and check it out. It was from Monday night, which was the 12th or the 13th of March, depending on exactly when it was.
That's 2018.
Haha.
Well, someone could be listening in the future.
Current year argument.
No.
Current year
well,
argument.
I wasn't making a current year argument. I was making a, hey, somebody could be listening to this far down the line.
That's true.
Well, assuming that we survive that long. As a people.
Hello, people from the future. We're from the past.
Welcome.
Everything kind of sucks right now. Hopefully it's better
I'm glad you're listening to us from your box.
Yeah.
Google Play, stop. Sorry.
Anyway, if you want to be my friend on Steam and chat with me about all kinds of things, or invite me to play games. Who was it? Someone invited me to play CSGO this week, and I'm drawing a blank on who it was right now. I don't have Counter-Strike Go, so I couldn't play that. But if anybody ever wants to invite me to play games and hang out, I'm cool with that too. And my Steam username is jarthur4707. I accept all friend requests and love talking to you lovely people.
And if you wish to let them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Cold Brew.
Indeed. That is a inside baseball reference to something that happened before the show.
Cold Brew. So, my channel. Still running unlimited content with focus on the podcast, of course, but also keeping RimWorld going because that actually gets a few views. Netherwallop is doing somewhat well. Had the day of Black Sun where I had a eclipse that somehow lasted a day and a quarter in completely depleted batteries. Can someone explain to me how an eclipse could last that long?
Tide goes in, tide goes out. Can't explain it.
Damn Bill O'Reilly and his scientific argument. But, yeah. Well, I lost a second person this week. It was the resident nudist. Turns out, combat armor, kind of important. Who knew? Well, they bitched and moaned every time I had him wear even just an armored vest. No, I must be free. Oh, my spine. And that's actually what killed him, was they got shot through the spine and it killed them. Oh, but yeah, RimWorld's always a lot of interesting times, but that's why I like playing it. You can find that over on Gaming with Caffeine Rage on the YouTubes. I'm still behind on recording Civ. I intended to play it or to record it Sunday night, but our recording time for Divinity Original Sin went a lot longer than I expected. And by the time I would have rendered it and got everything done, it would have been a little late for me. So I ended up just skipping again this week. Which I don't think anyone has really noticed. Except maybe Kyle. Because he hasn't been able to complain about everything I've done wrong. But speaking of Divinity, we are getting ahead on our content, so we should start looking at a release date to start that up again.
Hey, I'm ready. I've got all those episodes edited and already uploaded to my channel.
I need to render them, so I need at least some time for them, and probably I would like to get one more recording session done, so we release and we have a good month worth of content for whenever you get the plague again, or I get the plague, or the plague's involved somehow, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's been part of our problem, is that we've just, either one or both of us have been sick. And, yeah, well, February just sucked for me. And Sunday Sampler, of course, is always ongoing, and I have some interesting choices this time around. It's always feast or famine. And I have something that actually looks decent. That isn't gonna piss me off and I'll rant for a half an hour about a titty game. And the gameplay in it. Which, to be fair, I shouldn't expect great gameplay from a game that's built around anime boobies, but damn it, I want good gameplay with my boobies. I want to play with my boobies and have them be good,
Yeah.
But you can find all of that over with Caffeine Rage, or you can just find me on the Twitter where I tweet. Well, I tweet a little bit of political about the Space Force, and I don't know. Well, that's breaking some treaties, idiot. Gaming with a CR on the Twitter, and I don't have a Twitch at least just yet. It's something I intend to do at some point, especially with how YouTube has been a massive bastard. Moving the goalpost, right?
Yep.
But speaking of things moving along, you could contact us as we move along to the ending spiel, VGLpodcast@gmail.com, with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, questions, or just tweet them to us, VGL Podcast, once again. Our Patreon, patreon.com/VGLpodcast, has helped pay for our Podbean account, VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which is the home of the RSS feed, show notes, and our presence outside of iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever Jared stuck us that is not up his butt.
You did it.
What?
You made the joke I was going to make.
I've spent way too much time with you, and I am unclean. And you are a naughty, naughty boy.
Oh, yeah.
But I have done a little bit of rearranging on the site to clean off some of the excess stuff, and something that we missed when we did the site transition is our contact information on the actual site. But we were fighting the RSS feed at the time, and it kind of slipped our minds. So that stupidity has been, resolved, and I did a little bit of rearranging. Probably a little bit past due to do an art pass on that thing, to be honest. Oh, and also moved the player, so the ability to actually play the episodes is above the show notes now. It looks a little bit better, actually. At least in my opinion. But I could be wrong. But what I'm not wrong about is our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and Doobly-Doo, our Discovery Cube music, is by the same artist. You can find his work at Incompetech.com, and
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice. Bye-bye now.
So Stephen Hawking, that really sucks.
Yes, it does.
You don't have anything to say about that, do you?
I'm not even going to try and make a joke. He wasn't a perfect man, but he was an excellent pillar of the science community and an inspiration to many people. STEM fields.
Yeah, I'm just worried about the future of science, because it just seems like there's just a lot more intellectualism than there used to be. But
well, here's to hoping that Elon Musk doesn't turn out to be a supervillain.
Oh, come on, he's totally a supervillain. He's going to build his base on Mars. He's already sent his car there.
True. Hopefully he's hiring.
Do you really want to be a henchman of an evil genius?
Yes.
I've played Evil Genius. That does not work out well, especially with all the traps laying around.
I love the tropes in movies and TV shows and stuff that the evil villains have really good healthcare plans and pay well and stuff like that. I hope that he fits that trope, because I would definitely be an evil henchman for Elon Musk if he had a good healthcare plan that included eye and dental, and he paid well.
Yeah, but you have to wear the bodysuit, and that just does not work for you.
That's fine. I'd wear the bodysuit.
Yeah, but I don't want to see you in it.
Hopefully I'd qualify for like an upper management position, being that I have a master's degree.
You'll be the counseling for all the minions that have been beaten up.
I could handle that.
Bye-bye.
Anyways. Bye-bye.